So how did you guys enjoy the field trip?
It was a lot of fun.
Was it different than you expected?
No, I think that's
Did Brent
exactly
screw you
what
adequately
we
enough
expected.
before?
I enjoyed it a lot. I especially enjoyed the canoeing.
Who had never been on a canoe before or in a canoe before?
Well, it's been decades.
Yeah, I had it.
That's
Yeah.
a really great field trip. I really like that aquatics. We always do fun stuff. And I think everybody survived it. We didn't lose anybody. So that's good.
Yeah.
I really liked the herping, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and now as I'm out walking, I'm looking for frogs and lizards and stuff. So, you know, that's something that I'll use a lot. I really enjoyed it. And the canoeing too, but we didn't see anything on, you know, while we were canoeing, we really didn't see anything. I guess all the turtles, I don't know why they weren't out. I mean, it was the middle of the day. You'd think they would have been there, but you know, it was still fun. I enjoyed it.
I love the seine net exercise right next to the sign that said "Beware of alligators."
That's actually, you know, I hadn't thought about that, but I guess that could be
Makes it that much
anxiety.
more exciting and fun.
Yeah.
All right, made it. Thank you for sending a different link and having to re-register because that helped.
Yeah, save that email, you guys, at the top of your list or something, or pin it or something so you can hit that same link again if you were having trouble. You texted me. I just got a text from Michael
Oh,
Perez. Let's see what he says.
Hi, Laura.
Oh, this is hilarious. He says, "Is there a password?" Or a
Oh,
password?
Michael.
I had to sign out and let it do some updates and sign back in, and then it worked fine. I was having some issues before. Just for anybody that's listening that's having issues.
Is anybody having trouble logging your hours or any sort of problems with any of that stuff? Everybody doing that okay?
I do. I have a lot of problems remembering to log them.
Oh, I have an explanation for why Zoom is acting up. The Texas AgriLife that pays for this didn't pay for their Zoom and it went to free.
Oh, no.
The last class was under a free account and then they paid it. So now we're back underneath the paid account that has more features.
Okay.
So,
Doesn't the free one have a time limit on it, or?
it's supposed to, yeah.
Right?
yeah, last time I was able to use the link that came with the first Zoom meeting, but now with this one, you had to re-register.
Yeah, re-registering is fine. It doesn't hurt anything to re-register for it.
Yeah.
See if he got on that. Oh, there he is. He is connecting.
Hey, Melinda.
He was. There he is. There he is. Hey, Michael. All right. If you want to go ahead and introduce our speaker, and thank you again for being here.
All right, you're welcome. Well, guys, it's good to see y'all again virtually. We had a really great field trip this weekend. I was really excited afterwards. And I recall our first meeting at the Botanic Gardens, and I remember Melinda. I remember she was saying how wonderful this class was. And how everything looked on paper. And I was thinking in my head, let's not get their head so big. Let's not get their head so big. Hold on, someone's trying to call me. All right, there you go. Spam's trying to call me. Anyway, I was saying, don't give them big heads. Let's not do this right now. And then 2 weeks into it, I'm like, wait a minute. Melinda, she was right. This group is going to be pretty special because everybody was there at the field trip. That's really exciting. And y'all don't understand how unique that is. Let's just put it that way. So thank you again for your faithfulness to the program.
First in the last 6 years. That's the first that everybody.
Exactly. So go ahead, give you a virtual pat on the shoulders there, because y'all are doing a great job. And it just speaks to your faithfulness to the program, your excitement to the program. And we appreciate all the feedback and the positive comments you had from the field trip. And despite all the elements and conditions, y'all are amazing. So with that being said, yeah, exactly, Morgan, even in the heat. Anybody have any quick questions? Want to put a nice bow, wrap up the aquatic section? Anything that just needs to be addressed before we moved on? I don't want to spend too much. I don't want to take too much time from our speaker, but I also want to make sure, once again, we close the door on the aquatics for now and move on. I take as a way of moving. Once again, thank y'all very much for everything thus far. So now we're going to move into for tonight. As I said last Saturday, we're going to be talking about forest. And today we have Laura Veloz. She's a natural scientist at the Fort Worth Nature Center and Refuge. She has been my comrade, my partner in crime for over 15 plus years. She's been with the Nature Center more than that. And she has a great a viewpoint, if you will, experiences with being with this subject matter because of all the forest habitat we have at the Nature Center. So again, she has a biology degree. She's a proud grad of Texas Christian University. So go Frogs. So I'm sure there's some frogs in the audience as well. So that's where she went to school and came out the Nature Center. She started off as a volunteer coordinator. And then shed that to our latest staff member, Kenneth Nally. But she has been with the Nature Center so many years and seen things change there. And she's been with this Master Naturalist program for quite some time as well, teaching and instructing. So she has some great input and subject matter for the forest, as well as an activity for you guys to participate in. And then also she's going to share with you about our next field trip, which she will be the lead on. So she'll give you that information. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it to Laura, and she's going to be sharing with you a little bit about the forest habitat. All right, guys, here's Laura.
Thank you, Michael. Hi,
You're
everybody. Like he said, my name is Laura, one of the naturalists at the Nature Center. Proud to be a naturalist at the Nature Center. Been doing it for my whole career. TCU pushed me on, just didn't want to be in the lab. I guess I was a lab rat back then. And I worked at TCOM, what used to be known as TCOM, and now I pursued being outdoors and have enjoyed it since the beginning. I've made a couple observations through my tenure there that I'm going to share today, and we're going to proceed on. Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to pause between some of my slides to see if anybody has any chat questions. Zoom is still somewhat new to me. I'm going to try to tackle this as much as possible. So I'm going to share my computer, and hopefully it's sharing. Can y'all see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Okay, let's see. I can't now. Technology. So like I mentioned, I'm going to speak about forest ecology, and doing so, going to give you some of my insight that I have learned through, observing the habitats at the Nature Center. It's quite amazing and very cool that the Nature Center has the variety of forest lands that we can kind of peruse when we go on our hikes on our next field trip. So, but before I get started, I like to look at the big picture. I used to be the one that I want to know what that tree is, and then I started growing out from that, wanted to know what that tree does, and then from that I wanted to look at what everything does. So this picture I found, and I always wanted to see what was it like when we just came to the Americas and noticed how was the forest, because really in the US we have lost a lot of the original forests that before Christopher Columbus and anybody moved to the Americas. It was like, what was it like? So this is a envision of, it was a forested area with prairie, of course, more wetlands than what we see nowadays. So this rendition kind of gives you a little potential of what it was. Sadly to say, oops, this is another graphic that shows how it has changed over time. So before, you know, movement through the whole United States, that was the dark area used to be what was the virgin forest. And as we proceeded on, we don't have a lot of the original forest that the settlers saw. And that's sad because we don't get to see the whole habitat as it was once. So we're seeing several successions of a forest, and we're still seeing even more. So my discussion today will be about the forest ecosystem. We're going to talk about the climate, substrate, hydrology, and sunlight. More about the forest ecology, some of the trees that we might see in some of the habitats that we may encounter. We're going to talk a little bit about the habitats itself, forest succession, natural disturbances, and a little bit of a quiz on leaf ID. Nothing hard, just a kind of like a reintroduction from our botany years in high school or college. So a little fact, and this was in your book, that Texas forest covers near 63 million acres. 63 million acres. That's about the size of Louisiana, Mississippi. That's like, wow. Of course, Texas is huge. If you ever had the luxury of, or the pleasure of driving from one end to another, yeah, it's a good drive from the east to the west. So we're going to pursue to studying ecosystem. So I started with this slide because I think sometimes we forget that a habitat, an ecosystem has many factors, and we only think of the living factors. So we think of the biotic factors. We start jumping about the deer and the bunnies and the birds. But honestly, there's so much to an ecosystem that we kind of just take it for granted. We either are not aware of it, or we're just like, that's not going to affect it, but it does. So just to break down, in any ecosystem like the one you saw at the wetlands to the one that you're going to see at the prairie and the urban settings, there's biotic and abiotic components. So there are living components that influence the ecosystems, plus the non-living. So we are probably more aware from our science from high school and all our biology, producers, consumers, decomposers, you know, how energy is transferred amongst those. And then from those consumers, then we kind of go into more detail about primary consumer, secondary, and tertiary. But we overlook sometimes that air and water and wind and soil, temperature and rainfall play a big factor of what actually goes into an ecosystem. So today we're going to kind of look a little bit in there and kind of peruse at some of the abiotic components, and then move a little bit. We'll see firsthand when we are at our forest field trip. FYI, a little side note, totally throw something. If I start speaking in Spanish, sometimes when I get really excited, I really, that's my first language, so I really get excited and start talking really fast. My Spanish might be coming up, or I forget my English words. So please forgive in advance. So let's go back to ecology. Let's go back into what we're more familiar, living creatures, living things. The breakdown kind of goes like organisms. So that would be a species, populations, all those species, the same species living amongst each other. Then communities, that's various species amongst in an area. And then ecosystems, it's the biotic factors, and then the biosphere. So another way to look at this is like you go big picture, Mother Earth, and then an ecosystem. It can be wetland, it can be the forest, And then the community, for example, we're going to talk about trees. And then populations, probably the oak trees more common, how they different, and then the red oaks possibly, and how organs and everything is. I heard a noise, so hopefully I didn't touch anything, break anything. Tissues. Oh, go ahead. Oh.
What?
Is everything good? Okay. Okay, so in this, I kind of put little side notes on my slides for you to kind of go back and maybe look at some of that information if you want more detail. And this is in your book, page 186. So overall, what we're going to study today is the forest ecology, which is the study of the forest as a biological community with interrelationships between various trees and other organisms, constituting the community and of interrelationships between these organisms and the physical environment in which they exist. So that's a way of a long definition saying how everything kind of is interconnected, everything kind of plays, is involved with each other, and how those factors come to play when we see them. So here we go. So overall, as you probably are aware, there are 10 ecoregions that we have here in Texas. So of course, we are in the cross timbers and prairies. That is where Fort Worth is found. For further east, you go to Dallas, you have the Black Land. If you go to El Paso, which my husband has family there, it's Trans-Pecos. If you go down all the way to South Texas, you can kind of see where everything kind of lies in here. But what we're going to focus is mostly on the cross timbers and the prairies, which is quite amazing because you have, again, in the big state of Texas, you have 10 ecoregions, and that's pretty remarkable if you take a drive from Texarkana to El Paso in one day, or try to. I don't know what happened. Now it can't. There you go. So let's talk a little bit, and I was also in your book, just for a friendly reminder, the piney woods. When we think of forests in Texas, we think of the piney woods. And I put the inches of rainfall at 36 to 50. That's the wettest part of Texas. Technically, well, we have pine and oaks and other hardwood forests growing. And if you ever travel there or been there, you'll notice how tall some of the pine trees can be, and how sometimes very packed and very lean they look as you walk in the forest. But then if you go to the Edwards Plateau, which is a beautiful area for wildflowers and grasses, prairies, you'll see that, of course, the rainfall goes a little bit less. Then you find some junipers and some oak junipers and mesquite because of the less amount of rainfall. And as you go to south, which is a really cool habitat, you'll find the thorny brush, mesquite, acacia, prickly pear cactus. Some of that habitat has been disappearing with farmland, but there's pockets that you may see there. One of my favorite species of cats can be found in that area, and that's the ocelot right there. And then, of course, further west in the very dry area is the desert shrubland, and you'll see pinyon woodlands. You see more of the less water-dependent plants in that part of Texas. And then, of course, in our area, the cross timbers and prairies, you get oak trees and hickories and tall grass prairies. We have savannas. And so it's a little bit of a great topography as well, and different types of vegetations. So one thing that when I started, I would say that I just looked at the trees and I said, okay, there's trees. And then I looked at the understory and there's plants underneath, and looked at the floor and the soil. But for as a naturalist, and as you will kind of make those observations, someone made a point that she liked looking now at things a little bit closer after going with Michael Smith. It's hopefully this will happen to you too, where you see beyond the trees, you will start seeing connections. So one of the mantras that I was told when I started working, that everything is interconnected and nothing stands by itself. And it's so true. And it's always been shown in any habitat and anything related to nature. So beyond the trees, beyond the understory and the forest floor, you'll see the connections of course, typical roots taking up water, the leaves falling, which is about to start happening under stress. The cycling of events, But then and that's all biotic factors. So now we start talking about the real, how everything plays together. So we have the rain that comes in, and then the people, don't forget, we're part of this ecosystem. And then of course you get the animals who eat those plants. And then of course the whole cycling of nutrients in that forest. So again, when we look at a forest, there's so many things that are happening that we in a snapshot cannot be able to capture it all. It happens seasonally, and every year tends to be a little bit different. So just a way that I found in Ecology book to kind of break down all these complex cycles is to look either by pieces and then patterns, and then, oops, sorry, moved ahead. Let me take this, processes. And then of course, then you start looking composition and structure and function. So that helps you kind of be able to chew it, because trying to learn everything all at once can be overwhelming. And we may not have the time. We have to learn through some of the experiences. So again, for those that can recognize, this is one of my memorable plants that I'm putting a picture because a piece of the puzzle. By chance, anybody in chat willing to share what this picture, fuzzy picture of this plant may be in the forest? I put my chat on and see if anybody, who's the first one to respond. A little bit more interactive. So anybody recognize this greenery that grows in a vine? I think some of you might have, yes. So everybody, you will pass that test when we when we go in there. So poison ivy, very interesting plant. People sometimes say it's a bad plant, and I will disagree with that. This plant has its purposes in the ecosystem. The seeds produce berries that birds eat them, and then of course some of the birds. I'm starting to think faster now. Deer might browse on some of that. So this is poison ivy, and we'll see in the forest. So keep that a mental picture. It's 3 leaves, let them be, and it can grow as a vine, or it can be as an understory. And we'll find it in the forest, so just FYI when we go there. So let me go back here. I'm toggling, trying to figure out what I'm doing. Oh, there you go. So as you can see here, let's jump into climate. So climate and weather are 2 different things. Weather is something that can change in a time frame, in a day. Climate, it's the big picture, is what you see on a cycle. Like we'll know that the climate, we're going to expect colder weather coming up soon as fall starts moving into our area. So as you can see in this picture, climate plays an integral part of what grows in certain areas, especially in the forest. So we're not, oops, again, sorry. Tundra, very cold weather, it's Celsius, but little precipitation as you move all the way to one extreme to another, where it's a little warmer temperature, but very low precipitation. That's subtropical desert. And then of course, another extreme, you will notice, of course, the rainforest, the tropical rainforest. We tend to kind of be on this side of this temperate seasonal forest. We have mainly a deciduous forest where we are, and we get to see the pleasures of the colors coming up depending on our cold fronts and moisture that we get during that climate. So that's just a general idea how forests are kind of broken down by climate and where we may see them in certain regions. But we're gonna really jump into soils for a little bit, because I think that plays a very integral part to what grows. And I can attest to it because I used to plant everything, and my friends used to say, well, everything's growing lush over here. And I'm like, nothing's happening in my yard. But I never looked at the picture of what's underneath the roots, what's holding the roots, and that's the soil. So just a little throwing it back to high school, rocks kind of are the formation, the starting point of soils. So as you can see, the soil is a medium. It's a substrate where roots can start getting some of the nutrients. It holds the roots in place, and the plant, therefore, I have a little typo there. I just noticed, supplies nutrients to complete the plant's life cycle. As it behaves like a reservoir for water and air, and also able to source some other oxygen in the roots so they can go through their processes. And that's important because plants, that will influence what plants you'll grow, how fast they grow, how big they can get, and of course, stability against the winds that we may have here. So overall, general composition of soil in a healthy, uncompacted, natural area, it will be 25% air, 25% water, organic matter, and minerals, which comes from the rocks kind of over time. And as you can see here, a good healthy soil will be a little bit of everything. A loamy soil, it will have a good healthy bacteria and fungi relationship. It will have organic matter of fresh and decomposing, and those that have been in the process of the decomposing. And I know this is very small, even on my computer, I'm like, plant nutrients, what it gets, organic, macro and micro, and primary or secondary components. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So this is totally different when we go in urban settings because we have added all sorts of things to our soils there, and therefore we have a different aspect of a forest there than we get at the nature center. This is a cool infographic that I found. I thought it's really relevant to what we do, what we're talking about. It shows the soil that, I like this. I always like what people used to think. We know more about the movement of celestial bodies than about the soil underfoot. And that is true with a lot of things in nature, but you can see it's kind of all these little neat facts about soil. I think we take it for granted more than we should. So we'll keep looking at that when we go on our hike. So let's talk about textures. I don't know if anybody has done this, where you go out and you go text the soil and see if your soil is loam or is it more sand, silt, clay. Has anybody had any testing on your type of soil to figure out what quality or what texture you have on your soil? Because I think the AgriLife may do that, or I think they used to, but they were able to kind of tell you what composition of your soil is. And there's an easy way of doing this also in your backyard. Yes, web soil is a great source that can kind of really help you figure it out. And that's really, really important, guys, because some plants do not love all the rich nutrients that you might offer them. Some like to be a little bit under, I would say, stress, I guess. They do better. And that's because of the type of soil the roots are living in. So of course, was sandy is soil, a little bit bigger particles. And then you have silt, a little bit more finer, smaller particles, and of course clay, which can compact. Now at the Nature Center, we have a little bit of each. We will be able to see this firsthand as we step in a cross timbers forest, which is very sandy soil, to going to the prairie, which will be clay, to an area of forest disturbance, which has different periods of succession, a little bit more of bottomland silt. So this is really cool to figure this out. And there's a way to do so. Let me see. Oh, I jumped ahead. So this is another way that the texture of your soil can play an important factor. You will see that depending on how much rain and how much we get, of course, though in the sand in 20 minutes, this is just an estimate, and a meter of sand, you will have water just percolate down faster, and then silt, and then clay. And so if you ever had an opportunity to walk on our prairies after a very heavy rain, you will grow an inch of clay underneath your feet because it's very, very sticky. So let me go here. Oops. So a little bit interesting notes that I find will help us, especially in our plants, in our area, is of course clays have high nutrients. They're wet and cold in winter, and they bake dry in the heat of summer. They're easily damaged when dug or walked on. It's very heavy to dig and cultivate Of course, we know that they drain slowly after rain, and they warm up slowly in summer as approaches, leading to delayed plant growth. And then, of course, silt. We have fertile soil, so moisture retentive, and it can be easily compacted as well, not as easy as clay, and warm up more quickly in the spring than clay soils. And of course, sand, they drain very fast, quickly, easier to cultivate, warm up quicker in the spring, and dry out quickly. And all the nutrients tend to be leached out a little bit faster in that type of soil component. And this is just another infographic about how soil can form over time. I think a lot of us, or some of us, might have just, especially the nature center, you will see some areas that had been scraped before it became a nature center. So they're getting into that top soil slowly and gradual, and it will take time before they get a bigger community as a forest growing there. So this is quite also really interesting related to soils, is the soil horizons. As you can see, depending on the type of bedrock, which is your parent material broken down over time, you will get different layers of soil. And this changes depending on the habitat you're entering. So again, organic matter, that will be established here on an annual basis. And then over time, with good bacteria and old fungi, you get a layer of topsoil with minerals, with humus. Then elevation layer, which is leach minerals and organic matter. Then your subsoil, and then further down as you go. And this is important because that can tell you in what layer or what horizon you might be able to find some of your roots and where are they getting all the nutrients. So let me go here. Another thing that is very important that plays a factor in some of our forest habitats is the pH. As you can say, pH also can give you an idea of what may grow. So some of the areas, like very sandy soil, will have more acidity, which doesn't allow another group of species of trees to move in. So in the cross timbers tend to be a little bit more acid. This is the prime pH number. And then of course, pure water is 7. And then you get more over here, like limestone, a little bit more calcareous soils. And that will play a big factor of what grows in your habitat. Hopefully, with nature being at balance, you will have a balance of the pH, but you know what happens sometimes in forests, we sometimes intervene and they could skew it, but they'll always try to find a balance depending on the dominant species in that area. And here we have another interesting graphic about micronutrients and primary macronutrients. So of course we know nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. When we go and get fertilizer for our plants or grass, we have to kind of consider what our plants need, and those tend to be the top primary macronutrients that we seek to put into our plants. And so this happens naturally in nature, one way or another. So just to give you a big picture overview of what the soil horizons might look, this is interesting. In the rainforest, since there's a lot of moisture, a lot of the minerals and nutrients will be leached out. And so you'll have more of a consistent color pattern as you go through the horizons, and everything, all the minerals will kind of accumulate down at the bottom. In our forest or deciduous forest, you will see, of course, our top layer or organic matter on the surface. As it becomes humus and mixes with minerals, it kind of goes down. And then you'll have a layer where a little bit things kind of maintain, some of your minerals will hold. And as you move down, you'll get to the parent material. And over here at the pine forest, you'll see a more acidic, kind of the same, almost similar pattern of soil horizon as the deciduous. And that's, as you walk in the forest, just consider, at what stage is this forest is and what possibly it holds in its underneath its canopy and its roots. Okay, let me move on. Sorry, guys. So this is in your book. This is really cool to be familiar with. So this is the soil texture pyramid. And as you can see, it's broken down into percent silt, percent clay, percent sand. So if you ever want it, if you have time and it can be done at home, you can get a little jar and kind of get an estimate of what kind of composition you have, where you lay, what kind of soil you have in your front or backyard. And calculating percentage, you kind of let it set. I've done this now twice, and the longer you let it set, not just 24 hours, sometimes I left it for almost a week, you will see this pattern forming in your jar where you have the water, the clay, the silt, and the sand. Sand tends to be the biggest, so they go down to the bottom. And because of that, then you can get kind of percentage of each texture of soil. And then how do you use this soil texture pyramid is that you will, for example, this one is clay. Let me see if I put in the right order here. So you go clay and you run the line there. You start, so, and then the next one is silt. So that's 30% right there. And then of course, sand is 60% right there. So this type of soil will be sandy loam. That's a cool way of kind of seeing the quality of soil that you have. So let's go to rainfall. So living in Texas, sometimes there's a saying that you never know what the weather's going to be in a given day. And so here's kind of a snapshot of the average monthly precipitation here from 1971 to 2000. As you can see, May tends to be the rainiest. And then I'll follow by October. So if we follow this pattern, we soon will get a lot of rain coming here. And then of course, August being the driest out of all the months, kind of similar to January and July. But overall, looking at the ecoregions and also kind of consider the amount of rainfall we get from east to west, we will notice that we have, of course, the wettest portion of Texas in the east. And as we progress all the way to El Paso, is the least amount of rain. How does that play into a forest? Well, they are green umbrellas. They are actually the ones who, in a natural setting, can buffer the precipitation that falls in an area. So if we look at one picture of a tree, a snapshot of a tree, you will notice that you have the precipitation that falls down. If it's stopped by the tree canopy, we call it through fall. So it passes through and it does it gradually. So if you ever have an opportunity to walk in a forest after a rain, you'll still get wet because some of the droplets are just kind of trickling their way down to the floor. Some of them stay up in the canopy and they're evaporated. Some of the plants are transpiring as well. And then of course, those that actually get all the way down to the water will follow the pattern to the right, where you can see how everything kind of trickles down to the watershed, and either it's absorbed or percolates down to the groundwater, or it's runoff down to the closest creek, stream, or river. If you look internally, this is quite fascinating as well, because I always wondered, and I don't know if I'm the only, well, I couldn't be the only one because they find this information. It's like, how can trees get water all the way up to the top of their canopy if they're several feet high? Well, it starts from, it's all about pressure, the potential gradient. So it's high here because there's a lot of water and it trickles up. And depending on what species of tree, the cohesion and adhesion will draw the water all the way to the top, where it can help the plants and the leaves stay cool. And then of course they transpire as well. And so we'll see that mostly in the evening. But there's a whole process and it's amazing. Some of those redwoods are huge and they can't be able to do this, travel water all the way through up to the xylem, all the way up. So photosynthesis, we know that our plants are autotrophs and trees are one of them. They make their own food, and there is a process to do so. So not only do they get water from the roots, then they get the CO2 from the air, and then of course they get the sunlight, and they convert all of that through this beautiful formula called photosynthesis, which is a 6 carbon CO2, 6H water, and let me move this here, and then make sugar and releases oxygen. And then of course, but then at nighttime, when there's no sunlight, or they make that sugar and convert it back to something they need, and it goes back. And so they release CO2 as well, and they release water as they use that sugar. So that is pretty cool about trees and other plants. They make their own food, and from there, they become the primary source of our food web in all the world. And this is really important because the amount of light affects them as well. The photoperiod can tell the plant to either go dormant or flower. So it's not only climate, it also the photoperiod. And then you can also see the quality of light. It allows some of them to grow faster and flower sooner. And then the quantity allows the growth. So right now, a lot of our plants and a lot of the trees are in this photoperiod mode where they're noticing there's a change in the amount of day length. We've lost, I think, more than an hour of day length since July. And so they're starting to kind of prepare for what's to come, which is start slowly closing their connection to the leaf and slowly letting time progress and nutrients be absorbed back to the trunk. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Another cool graphic is, of course, this is a bigger picture of the photosynthesis that we're taught, but there's also the cellular respiration that we forget. So when they're not making their own food, they also are able to convert their food that they acquire, their sugars, and convert it at night when there's no sunlight to help them make photosynthesis. So this is important, especially if you talk about climate change and how trees help us kind of buffer some of the CO2 and the reflection. So of course, out in the prairie in the summer, you're melting away, you get to see beautiful flowers, but there's a terminology called the albedo effect, which is a proportion of incident light or radiation that is reflected by surface, usually given to a topic about, the moon, but you can take it into effect as well on the forest habitat, because solar radiation happens daily. The canopy of the trees will be able to absorb as much as possible. So the reflection of the radiation kind of gets trapped. That's why if you walk in the forest, when we walk this, when we go on a field trip, if it's really hot, this humidity, it's kind of buffered, it's absorbed, but it stays, and there's a low reflection of solar energy back. But in an area of deforestation, you can, or open area, there's a lot of solar radiation, and so a higher albedo effect, which is reflecting back. And there's of course there's a lot of heat loss in the winter, or there's a lot of heat retained in some of the forest. But here's another cool view of looking at. Don't think of only when a forest has canopy, since we have a deciduous forest, what's going to happen in winter? Well, we can see that the solar radiation will be able to hit all the way to the floor, warm up the ground, kind of maintain the roots content, not freeze as much. And then there's a reflection coming out compared to a full canopy during the spring and summer. So here's where it comes into the big picture, the big overlook. So the albedo effect was actually kind of helps us consider what happens where the ice caps are melting. So what is happening here, they reflected a lot of light, but when the greenhouses keep all the heat down here and start warming the soil, they won't be able to reflect as much light if all our caps are melting. And so greenhouse has a kind of multiple gradual effects that we sometimes take for granted. So as you can see here, ice does reflect a lot of solar energy back, but when we don't have ice and it keeps melting as the earth warms up and the ground warms up, we'll have a whole cascade of events. So as you can see here, asphalt doesn't reflect, it absorbs a lot, so warms up the soil compared to the forest right here. Big picture also, there's a lot of absorption going in our oceans as well. And this is always changing. So sunlight, because they're autotrophs and they make their own food, plays into a major effect of how things grow. So in a forest area, since trees will have to outcompete with each other, you will have a diversity of shade tolerant to shade intolerant trees. And as you move out to the ecotone, which is between one habitat to another, you will see the changes that will happen. You will see that firsthand. You saw it firsthand in the prairie and through the bottomlands. You'll see very shady areas compared to areas where filtration, sunlight hits to the floor, and other plants tend to grow. And you will notice how also the full sun affects the same species different ways. So a full sun, you will notice that the plants either try to have less surface area showing. So some of the plants will be maybe looking wilted or kind of at an angle, versus in areas where there's dapple sunlight, they will have their leaves kind of open up to capture as much as possible. So that's something that is a cool adaptation. And even when we're trying to learn the tree leaves, and you say, well, I have this black oak leaf or red oak and it looks different than the other area, it might be the same species, but you have to consider if it's if it's getting a lot of sunlight, that might change the morphology of the plant. It might be the same species. So keep that in mind. That's why when you go and look at tree leaves, you kind of look at different varieties, because depending on where they've fallen from, depends what kind of shape you may be able to see on the ground. Fun part, forest stratification. So of course, we know that at bottom floor, we see the substrate, we see the leaf litter, we see acorns, all sorts of cool stuff. And then those that are trying to get some sunlight or get filter sunlight, you'll see the shrubs. So that's shade tolerant. And then you'll see the understory, those that have had enough sunlight to hit them. And eventually the canopy, which tends to be or dominant species, the ones who hit the jackpot, but be able to be pulled out all the way to the top. And again, sunlight does play a factor in some of these species, because they're the ones who will overshade the others in the forest. So they have the emergent layer, the ones who are the highest in the forest canopy, and then the canopy, and then of course the understories in the forest floor. So a variety of everything. And let me stop. Oh, well, yes, I think I will send my slides over, Dana. There's a lot of information I'm just trying to go over. I'm just reading this chat, everybody, just to make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Feel free to ask questions. I like to know, I can talk all about what I like to talk, but this is a two-way conversation. So please ask questions. And if not, we'll hold it until the end. Let me see. Cool things is that when we start looking at the forest stratification, there is like a relationship of who gets to what position. It's kind of like soccer or football. It's like you have the dominants, the ones that got to, again, went all the way to the top and were able with no inhibitions to get sunlight and therefore grow. And they become the dominant species. They take a lot of the sunlight. And then of course you have the co-dominants who are there, but they're not the emergent. They're in the canopy there. You see a little bit more of those. And then intermediate, who by luck or chance are able to get enough for them to grow, but they don't get the full canopy, be able to get full sunlight. And of course the shrubs, and then the ground cover. And in different habitats and different types of forests, you get to see that pattern. Now in urban forests, most of them are dominant because everything is kind of, one tree stands by itself most of the time. But you get to see this crown classification mostly in an older progress of succession forest. As we go along, please look up in the canopy if you have a forest nearby tomorrow. look for crown shyness. This is a terminology that is really nice to look on. There's different theories of why this happens. So in a forest that has a lot of dominant and dominant trees, you will see there's beautiful pictures, how the canopy seems that there are little gaps, like little pieces of puzzles together. That could be maybe because they don't want to compete, or they have the wind kind of has broken some of the branches. There's different theories of this, but you get to see this in some of our forests here, especially the older forests, because they have been playing with each other, or I'm going to say co-evolving with each other for longer periods of time. So forest succession. In nature, everything's always evolving. Nothing stands stagnant for a period of time. So as you can see here, change is the rule. There's always things, a tree passes away, a disturbance happens. It's always evolving. It's to what degree of evolvement does it happen? So there's different models of succession, after fire, after hail, or after an eruption, volcano eruption. What is interesting is those trees through succession leave a biological legacy. So think about them as storybooks, that we forget that some of our trees have outlived a lot of historical moments, or they have been present, in a lot of historical moments. It also gives you land use history, fire versus non-fire, pre-settlement forests, which we have less and less, and multiple succession pathways. So there's always hope. It depends to what extreme the succession is in. So technically primary succession, I don't think we will see it in our area. I say that because I should never say never. So bare rock, it's like a volcano eruption, clears top layer, kind of clears everything out of the way. And so then you get your first pioneer plants, which will be lichen, and then a small gradual, they kind of break the rock, and they kind of start getting a little top layer, and you have to see plants and more involvement to grasses and perennials. And as those get shaded, you will see the intermediate species, those that are in the flux. They're growing faster because they have to make sure they have an opportunity to outcompete the more dominant species, the climax community that will move in. So then you have the grasses and the shrubs and the shade intolerant trees. And then of course, at the end, at a given time, climax community happens. We're most of the time in our forest, we are mostly intermediate. I think a lot of the climax community, if the forest is used for lumber or it hasn't been disturbed, it's hard to find some of those climax community. So, okay, volcanic eruptions, retreating glaciers, landslides. But this is what we have more common in our area, which will be our secondary succession, which will be after a disturbance. For us, it could be a fire, it could be a hailstorms, where not everybody got wiped out at the same time. So you have some that withstood a disturbance, and there's a gradual movement once again. And again, this will take from primary to climax hundreds of years. We won't see it in our lifetime. But secondary succession can also take a lot of time as well for it to get to the climax once again. So, I'm going back to the chat. So Taylor, you asked, are roots shy too, or do they grow together? It depends on the species, but we'll get a little bit of that topic when we talk about relationships in the forest. And yes, on the field trips, will we see definitely, because we're going to go in the bottomlands. You saw bottomlands succession where the water every year kind of moves in and takes over and kind of wipes the grass and the shrubs and just leaves the dominant species. So definitely we will see that. I'll make sure we see that as well. So I think I see all those questions. So great questions, guys. Thank you. So in this one, samples of succession will be fire, wind, drought, invasive species, pollution, hail, ice storms, logging, and so much more. So most of our forests have seen, they are in several successions since a settlement in the US. And why is that important? Let's take again the big picture, because of that succession, you get a diversity of wildlife who comes in. And actually what's interesting to me is that most diversity of wildlife is in the middle, not in the beginning of succession or the climax. It's actually in the middle because it provides a little bit of everything to everybody. And for those birders out there, there's a couple that we will see moving in, of course, as winter starts or the colder temperatures. So field sparrows, the wood thrush, the red-eyed vireo, those are commonly seen at the nature center. And looking at below at this picture right here, a farmland. Some of the land at the nature center has had multiple use since it became a nature center. Some areas were overgrazed, some areas were not managed. So you will be able to see some of that disturbance from disturbed soil to what the cross timber says to us, one of the climax communities that we have here. And of course, we'll get a little bit of everything in going from one ecotone to another. So this is interesting. So this I studied in chemistry, and SNOPS is something that is a good acronym to kind of remember that these elements are very important for the living organism. So carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. They make our building blocks for us as well as other creatures. So all these elements are the 99, which make 99% of life biomolecules. So either independently or put together most of the time in molecules, they're really, really important. I'll answer questions in a few minutes. I'll make sure I have a stop time. We're doing good on time. So how are these elements play into the forest, into the plants, and to in our surroundings? So of course, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, those are in the elements out in air, in the water, free elements or kind of attached to things. And then the other elements, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, they're all sometimes in the soils, depending on what type of soil composition we have. This graph kind of shows the importance of it and how do they kind of affect the plant growth. Knowing your plants will give you an idea what's lacking of them. So you know, some of the things we just think it's just carbon, oxygen, water, and that nature will provide everything. But everything is interconnected. So everything needs a little bit of this to make it make the plant be successful. So the topic, since it's always now in the forefront, is carbon sequestering. So one of the questions I got asked a while back when we started doing Master Naturalist was which kind of forest acquires the most carbon? So honestly, a new forest will acquire faster carbon, sequester more carbon, because as they're moving and growing and creating biomass, they will do so. But an older forest will retain most of that carbon. So that is a very important factor to consider, because that tree from succession has been able to store a lot, and it has it all in the canopy all the way into its roots. And it's kind of sinking that carbon into the soil. So when we develop an area and we knock those trees down and we're saying we're going to plant like twice as much, well, that tree might have been sequestering already that much. So we'll talk a little bit about urban consideration of trees. So keep in mind that is an important topic. A lot of the trees that were once like post oaks nearby are being developed, are being destroyed as we develop all over. So sad for me to go to, we went to Acton last week, and some of those oak trees in the middle of the prairie being toppled over and the prairie gone because of development. That's harder for me. That's just my personal note there. So please read Aldo Leopold if you have time. It's a great natural, we are taught to read this, and it's a small book, really nice to read. I read it to my kids. It tells a beautiful story of how trees develop and how he sees nature in an area. So he who owns a bur oak owns more than a tree. He owns a historical library and a reserved seat in the theater of evolution. To the discerning eye, his farm is labeled with a badge and a symbol of prairie war. And the prairie war, well, you will see it firsthand when you go to the prairies, because trees will always want to get sunlight and they will try to outcompete the prairies. So let me have, now we still have a couple more minutes. So let me move on to trees, since that's the species, that's the organism we're going to focus on, because we're studying this dominant living organisms that's found in this habitat. Let's talk about trees. So trees are more than just something standing in front of us. They have leaves, they have a heartwood, they have sapwood, which carries all the nutrients up and down. They have the cambium layer, that is the ring that keeps on growing gradually, annually. The outer bark that acts like their skin that protects them from disturbance. Of course, the soil, that is, we notice about the type of soil can depend on what kind of growth of a tree, and the roots, which absorb everything that's nearby. And then of course, here's a better picture of this. We can kind of see, like Aldo Leopold said, it's a history, it's a timeline, especially in the deciduous forest. You will see the tree rings, and it can tell you so much in the history of that tree's life, or what was happening in that environment that time. So take snapshots every year. So as you can see, early in spring, when it has the moisture and it has the light, you'll have this lighter, usually in a tree, coloration before you get the dark, the slower, the late summer, when things are a little bit harsher for them to grow and develop. So you can count tree rings, and you don't count the dark and the light. You either count one or the other. If you ever have a tree cookie, or that's the terminology we use, you can kind of see the scarring of either from disturbance, from a fire, from insects. You can also see if that year was a good, wet and healthy year for them to grow, or was one of the years where it was under stress and it didn't grow as much. And this is interesting because there's a difference between softwoods and hardwoods. Of course, you will see more distinctly the tree rings on softwood, because it grows faster, it grows better, I guess, easily. And the hardwoods, like the red oaks, who put a lot of investment, a lot of tannins in their growth and their leaves and all in their body, you will see those little gradual, smaller, harder to read tree rings as well. So as you can see here, you see the growth ring, that's 1 year. That's the early wood. That's another terminology for spring wood. And then the late wood, that will be like summer, fall, and oops, I went too fast. Oh, let me go back. And then the cambium layer, and then the inner living bark, and then the bark. FYI, if you ever had a beaver, and people always think of beavers eating just the bark, which that's not what they do. They actually chew to help file down the teeth, but they also are eating the cambium, the rich layer of growth of a tree. So that's what they're doing. Dendrochronology is definitely a science. It's the study of dating environmental changes by using patterns of annual growth of trees. So for this sample, and when we see a tree down, when we go on our hike, we may try to attempt, depending what type of species trees, we might kind of see what might have happened to it. For this tree, this sample here, you can see the fire disturbance right here, an area where it did not grow because of the fire harmed it. And then of course H, where probably extra herbivory happened by caterpillars, therefore it was stressed and wasn't able to grow as much. 2 years where it was overshaded in one area by the other tree, as it wanted to be a dominant tree. And a little funny side note that sometimes we forget is, of course, the far side. I don't know if you remember those cartoons. I remember growing up. Kind of shows you a little bit. This cartoon says, and see this ring here, Jimmy? That's another time when the old fellow miraculously survived some big forest event. So sometimes some of the trees, we notice how precious they are after the fact they've been down. So keep looking at trees around you and see which one could be, has a lot of history. For those that are into botany, trees, man, they're so unique. because you can identify them by sometimes by the bark, especially you're aware of some of your local native trees. There's descriptions when you look at your trees, either has a smooth lenticels or little openings where it's able to breathe, furrows, ridges. These are terminology given to trees, cracks, scales, and strips. So some of the trees like possum haw will be more of you'll see the lenticels, while some of our cottonwoods, you will see ridges. Some of our redbuds will be smooth as well. So looking at the bark of trees can tell you so much about the species that you might be looking at. Okay, so I'm gonna look at chat and just give me a couple of seconds as I go up. Does a forest intolerant have does a forest with a shade intolerant trees have a lower pH? How does the pH change to promote hardwoods? It depends on the soil, because remember how much water percolates might leach some of those minerals and contents that might be acquired. So soil will play into a little bit of factor pH. There's things that you can add to amend the soil, but that will be definitely talking to someone who talks more about soil. I forgot what the person is called. But that's a great question. I will look into that too. I have never seen a forest fire scar. Yeah, we have several trees that since we burned some of our prairies, there is, I don't think it did well, Eastern red cedar that has a fire scar. And we might have time to look, or I'll tell you where it is. Okay, so this is a time where you get to tell me what relationship. This is interactive. You can type on your chat. What kind of relationship am I showing you in this picture? There's different terminologies, the crustos, the folios, and fruticos. Anybody want to take a wild guess of what we may see in the forest when we go hiking? Parasitic, it might look like it. Yes. So it's a symbiotic relationship, definitely a symbiotic relationship. Symbiotic relationships is when two organisms act. It might be parasitic relationship, or it can be a mutualistic relationship. So yes, this is lichen. So lichen is found in most of our forests, and there's different varieties. And sometimes I can't tell the difference what type of lichen, but INAT can help us identify them. But that is actually a very cool relationship that we have that lives on our bark. And one little note that I was told when I was working at the Nature Center as I started is Freddy fungus and any algae took a lichen to each other and formed a symbiotic relationship. So if you ever teach it for younger kids, I think that's kind of cute to share that with them. But how does this relationship evolve? It's pretty, I think, ancient, because algae provide the photosynthesis, are making the sugars, while fungi are providing the substrate where they can hold on to the tree, and they're working together. So they have evolved to form this relationship that is pretty amazing. And we get to see different types of lichen all over our Nature Center. FYI, if you use INAT, you will see this one as the dominant lichen seen at the Nature Center, which is the golden eye. It reminds me of a James Bond movie there. Okay, this is cool. And then we'll take a break after this one. I think we're going to be in a good stopping point. Name this relationship. Look at the pictures. I know one of them is fuzzier than the other one, but this one, it's pretty amazing. I think I started learning about this 5 years ago. So it's recent that we, anybody, it's kind of, I was trying to be vague, but not too vague of what's happening here. As you can see, there's mushrooms here. So mushrooms can play a very integral part of how things can be broken into something that's more absorbable by the roots. So we have this terminology, mycorrhizal fungi, which are really important to an ecosystem in the trees. And then the saprotrophic fungi are those that eat dead material. So we see some of those on the tree that is about passing away, but these right here underneath the roots are able to help the tree growth. Yes, mycelium net and nutrient exchange, correct. So let me go here. And then after this topic, we'll stop. So TED Talks, if anybody listened, Dr. Susan Simard did a TED Talk that kind of blew anybody who was involved in studying forestry, like, wow, she's definitely putting the science in this. So they're saying trees talk. And I think we took it for granted that we only see the above the soil. We never look underneath. And once we look underneath, we disturb it. So we may not be able to see the true messages being crossed. So this mushroom, this mycorrhiza, are able to integrate into the root system. But of course, it's a relationship, it's a give and take. So this relationship is that the plants, the tree will be giving some of the sugars while the fungi will be able to break some of the minerals and absorb them. And since they're able to reach beyond the roots they're able to kind of help get stuff back to the tree. And with that connection, if you ever watched the movie, Avatar, where the tree kind of were connected, that's what I think of this, is that they communicate. And when the trees are stressed out, they can probably send chemical signals like, hey, there's a bug coming near, everybody get your chemical component up, so the parasite or whatever cannot integrate as easily to you. So there's a lot of communication. There's a lot of research out there happening about this. Please listen to TED Talks. The way she presents it will blow your mind. Yes, Susan Simard, Secret Language of Trees. Yes. It's really, really amazing. So mycorrhizal fungi increase the root system surface area. The fungi receive sugar from the roots, and in exchange absorbs and sends soil nutrients back to plants. So now that I walk in the forest, hopefully you will also see that there's so much going on that we don't really know, not as clear as we thought. And lastly, Mother Tree Project, that's Dr. Simard, and she, best known to research underground networks. And she's actually there's a site called the Mother Tree Project that she's proposing, or she's overseeing, where she's looking at research at how these mother tree connections, those connections that they have underneath the soil, can play a major factor how trees recover after disturbance, or how should we harvest them to have the least harmful impact in an area. Because what we usually tend sometimes is to remove those mother hubs or mother trees because they have the most lumber, or because they're overshading the fast growing trees, but to what impact that it might stress the connections that they have. So let's take a break, guys. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back at, let's say it's 7:20. And let's take a 5-minute break, so 7:25. If you have time to ask a couple of questions, or you have something to ask, I'll stay on and answer some questions. So I'll see you in 5 minutes, everybody. Let me see.
Thank you so much, Laura. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I'm starting to look a little, I need to turn on the lights in my office because I just looked at me, I'm like, I'm blending in with the canopy.
The lights here, they go off, but then if I wave my arm, they'll come back on again. Is there motion detected? Sometimes they'll do that when I'm working late.
You still don't have anybody in the office, so you're still the only one. I see someone in the background behind you.
Say that again?
Oh, I saw someone moving behind
Yeah.
you. So I was like,
They're collecting my garbage. Thank you very much.
I gotta say, I wasn't looking at the computer and I just heard you like saying, oh, there's someone behind you. And I was like, oh, like I ran to the computer real quick. I was like, what?
I probably scared a lot more people.
That was so scary. It's just me. I'm predisposed to anxiety, but
I get it. I get it.
Okay. So technically we have 1 minute from my clock, so 1 more minute. So 7:22, just enough to take a drink of water, a bath.
It's funny you happened to ask about if there was anybody around that, like the moment that she walked by.
I know. Well, I saw someone in the back and I'm like,
oh, you did?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Something that I do miss in my office and my home office is the 2 monitors, because I have to keep on moving the chat versus the pictures. Plus
I know that's I really, once you get used to 2 monitors, it's hard to. I only have one at home too, so so
yeah, it's a little bit harder.
You kind of get spoiled.
I'm definitely like, oh, I didn't want to be at work by myself today, so I decided.
Well, I mean, it gets a little.
It's dark.
A little
right,
bit
Ryan?
creepy out there.
Yeah, well, especially when you watch a scary movie the night before. So I'm like, I'm not going out. And my kids just went out to eat. Hopefully they'll bring me leftovers. Okay, everybody, let's get started once more, just to make sure we finish on time, and hopefully we had time to play, to not play, but talk amongst doing our PLT activity that hopefully everybody had a time to read. That will help a little bit if we get to it to finish it. So let me go back here, from tree to log. So when we walk in our forest, keep in mind that we always assume that everything's living all at 100%. And we forget to consider that the dying tree or the dead tree will become part of the ecosystem and be very integral to how everything kind of evolves there. So there's different terminologies and different stages, and that's more for if you're managing the forest, at what stage of it and to what danger does your visitor or it has to an area. But of course, at the nature center, if it falls away from a trail, it stays there. If it falls on the trail, we just cut it. So it gives you an insight how valuable the trees are to us. And even as a log, they provide a lot they become more like hotels for bugs and amphibians and reptiles. So a living tree is as valuable as one that is decomposing gradually. So of course, if you have an HOA, this is probably a no-no. They will tell you not to keep this, and they will probably tell you to have it cut. But a snag is very valuable, especially if you love your bats, if you love some of your, what's another thing we find there? Woodpeckers, things like that. A dead tree standing, a snag, becomes a wildlife condo. Interesting picture. This is just from the from online, and you can see they have a birdhouse, but I think that whole birdhouse could be the whole standing tree in the background. So again, I've seen birds of prey perch on the trees. They are food storage for animals, the bark. Some of our non-migratory bats will kind of stay underneath some of the bark or hollow areas of a tree. They become foraging sites for woodpeckers or birds that are moving in, looking for those insects that are hiding out. So think of a dead tree as a potential new way of providing a home to wildlife. And of course, that can be from lichen to mosses to invertebrates, your beetles for cavities for birds, and of course your mammals, of course squirrels and other smaller mammals. Definitely, I think when you went herping, Mr. Michael Smith might have rolled over a log and you might have encountered a couple of cool things, not only fungi, but millipedes and all sorts of things. So again, a dead tree in the forest becomes a naturalist's best way of finding life, sometimes when everything is quiet around. And the terminology in forestry is dead and down woody material. And that just tells you how much of it, what stages of succession it is in this area. And that's important. You probably saw plenty of carpenter ants over there and all sorts of things, beetles and fungi there. So let's talk about disturbance. So we can think of a disturbance as either only living things that may be nearby. So it can be an introduction of overpopulation of herbivores to invasive plants, of course, to some of invasive roots or living things, to pathogens, oak wilt, to, of course, cats that may be going after some of the birds, and therefore destroying some of the habitat there, all sorts of things. But usually now the disturbance in the big picture will be drought, logging, insect in big numbers, clearing, hurricanes, wildfires, all sorts of things are happening in our forest ecosystem that they somehow hopefully have time to recover to some extent. But this is what's happening at the Nature Center. So FYI, guys, this is the latest and the greatest of the emerald ash borer in our habitat. So during the summer, the forestry department put traps, and I was able to talk to the forester that came by, and he said, because I want to know what's happening. And he said, well, the hot spot for the emerald ash borers of all the traps he put at the Nature Center was by the building. Like, what? We have a good community of ash trees, Texas ash trees, and they were trapping it. So let me tell you how this all started. Technically, ash borers are not native to the Americas. They were introduced, and this picture was in Toledo. You will notice in June 2006, the ash trees that lined this street, after several years, they were all defoliated. And what was happening was internal. So this is a picture of the emerald ash borer. And the reason I showed this one is one distinct way to identify it, because we found several on a hike. I think, Ryan, you might have been with me or something like that. It's the rusty abdomen underneath the wings. That is distinct. And so the life cycle of the emerald ash borer, and so right now all the females have emerged, mated, and have probably laid their eggs in trees. And they lay the eggs, and what's going to happen is the larva is going to hatch and chew his way and eat the cambium layer of the tree as much as possible, getting the sugars, the food source. So it's going to start choking and stop letting things flow up or down. And eventually in a year or two, you'll start seeing that change also happening, as well as they're getting ready to pupate. And that's what happened this summer. And what the forester said, they're trying to figure out in this range, how early do they emerge from the ash trees. So once you see them out and about, that means they were in that tree for a while. So distinct things about them is that when they chew their way out, they form a D shape, upside down or sideways D shape, and they're beautiful. They're shiny, metallic, and you will see them nearby. They're not big, but I just want to give you that before we have a knee-jerk reaction, but sometimes we say everything that's green, therefore it's an emerald ash borer. Not necessarily. We have some ash borers that are native to a region. The emerald ash borer is the one that we are looking at, and they are very attracted to ash trees, Texas ash, green ash. Something about the tree's chemistry is just great to attract the females and therefore the males. So there's a variety of other metallic green insects. So please don't hate on all of them. They're just that one that we have to be very concerned. So if you have ash trees in your area, be mindful. I mean, I'm the nature center. I don't know if other sites around the Fort Worth area has seen them, but we have ash trees. They're one of the fastest growing trees in an area. So keep that in mind. So here's a picture of one kind of emerging out of the hole. Usually the females there, and this is the larva inside eating the cambium layer. It has a flat body, looks like a flatworm kind of inside the tree. So what's happening? Well, we are afraid that the trees, there's nothing that we can do that you can invest in injecting, treating the tree. Not sure the chemical component of that, but we have a champion, a regional champion green ash by the bottomlands where you were. I think 2 years they inoculated it with a chemical, and hopefully that will deter. But knowing that they had these purple, they call them purple prism traps, and they have a volatile chemical component that tends to attract the females. They can kind of gauge how many they have and therefore kind of figure out what time, what he mentioned, what time were they emerging. So they can kind of figure what time is the best to treat a tree. The silver lining of this is hopefully that woodpeckers will enjoy feasting a little bit more because it's a borer, so they'll be able to hopefully kind of take that vacuum right now because there's nothing, it's an introduced species, so hopefully they'll be able to start liking them more, figuring out, or maybe they already do so. But that's the silver lining about this. So every time I look at the ash trees, I always wonder if it's okay. Another thing that a nature center that we sometimes get to see is over browsing. And I know at the nature center, we have visitors wanting to see deer, and they're very happy to see deer. But as the management at the management of the nature center, they actually do deer surveys, because what will happen if they are not managed and somehow, we've never had to manage them really and just do deer surveys, is that in this little experiment right here, they will browse everything. So they eat everything. And if they're really competing for resources, they will browse some of the branches higher wherever they can reach, but they will definitely kind of clear out all the plant growing there. So yes, you can see here, there's a fence. And so it doesn't deter them from jumping in, but it just creates not an easy way to get food. So yeah, deers are good, deers are wonderful, but without a balance of a predator, they actually can overgraze an area. And I think my coworker, CJ, has been looking at the browsing to see how it's happening at the nature center. Of course, the latest and the greatest, you probably heard this time, the hammerhead flatworm. Cool, looks like a little alien coming in, but these are here now. They're from Asia, I think Vietnam, in that vicinity. They were introduced here when we moved things from soil pots from one area to another. And what is interesting about this is that they eat earthworms, which earthworms were also introduced, but they have a longer history in the United States. But they're eating, and the kind of scary thing, I'm like, you cut them I really know what part you cut them, but you cut them and they will regrow. I have not tried it. I don't want to try it. We have them at the Nature Center. Kenneth actually, or my coworker, saw one a while back. So they're here. Just keep in mind on them. Don't cut them in pieces. That's all I recommend not to do. And then over here to my right, this happened in a neighborhood, and all these are post oaks back here and development, and they just went overnight. And some of the neighborhood association were not really happy with what happened, because City of Fort Worth has a forestry department, and they want to be, the City of Fort Worth wants to have a 30% canopy coverage in the city. Of course, let's talk about some of the plants. So there's several plants that we have that are competing. They're non-native, so they tend to compete. There's nothing to balance them out. Number one at the Nature Center is privet. If you ever work Natural Guard, you'll know that you'll come across privet. You will walk and you will see privet. And privet it's a beautiful plant. It's not ugly. It becomes a bully in a habitat. So it takes the nutrients and it tends to choke the living trees, the dominant living trees above it. So here's a list of some of the invasive trees that we have, or plants that we have. So from Chinaberry to parasol tree, to tallow, to privet, kudzu, Johnson grass, poison ivy. I don't know about that one, but running bamboo, we have bamboo at the Nature Center. So all sorts of stuff. So let's talk about management. So at the Nature Center, like I said, if it falls, we just move it from the trail. If it becomes a hazard to the visitors, we will manage it as well. But naturally, we'll let everything go back to nature. So as you can see here in native forest, it's all hodgepodge of living to snags to fallen trees. Intense management, depending if you're doing for lumber, you want to make sure that your trees grow straight and fast and they have all the sunlight they need. So you kind of thin out, but that really thin out intensively, or a little bit more managed where you see the straight rows of trees in a forest that is going to be used for lumber. So that's one way of management. Also, depending if you're doing to prevent fire, so you thin them out so there's not enough fuel to be able to spread to the upper canopy. So, and it also depends on your species of trees. Oak trees tend to be more resistant to fire. That's why we have oak savannas on our prairies, because they are able to withstand a little bit more faster moving fires than a very heavy heat fire. Let me move this over here. So heavy thinning, again, it's a way to get your trees to grow faster. So because you want the potential of lumber from that tree, so you want to make them all dominant species. Moderately thinning is like you want some dominant to co-dominant species. And this is where the Nature Center is. Unthinned stand of forest, where you have dominant, suppressed, co-dominant, intermediate tree forest canopy. This is what we hope to do. So FYI, please, we'll do it firsthand as when we find some of the trees. We'll do, DBH. So we'll measure, estimate the volume and biomass of trees. And there's different ways to count a diameter of breast height. You have to have a special tape for this. Not the greatest at math, but there's a reason why. And it has to be a 4.5. So usually it's a breast height. And depending on what angle and what the shape of the trunk, this is the standard of measurement. And overall, it can give you an idea of how much biomass this forest can have, or an estimate of the age of the trees by calculating the biomass. So a shout out to trees. Please don't forget, there's so many things that we're taught early on. My kids always say oxygen, and that's true, but they provide more than oxygen. They reduce evaporation rates. They provide habitats for animals. They provide food for us. They stop erosion. They provide shade. There's so many things that a forest or a tree can give us. So we're going to go into the nitty gritty of our area, and maybe running a little bit faster just so we'll be able to do our activity. But this is what Tony Burgess, and Michelle will tell you more about Tony Burgess, Dr. Tony Burgess. He was really an impactful scientist at the Nature Center. He came from TCU, so right to horned frogs. And he gave this an idea. And now hopefully you get a copy of this PowerPoint and you will see into more detail the description. Tony L. Burgess right here down here. And you can see how, let me take my picture over here. You can see the woodland savannas of the western cross timbers compared to the prairie versus the eastern cross timbers right here. For the geology nerds, Polloxic sandstone, an older type of soil formation, to walnut, which is more recent, to up here. So we're in the western cross timbers. That's where the nature center lies. So that's the trees, the forest that we hope to see, plus the bottomlands that you were in with Mr. Michael Smith. So that's the type of forest we have. So Tarrant County. So what kind of forest do we have? So definitely the cross timbers. It's dry uplands, very sandy soil, very, the trunk is very, how's the way to say it? It has shape to it. It has texture to it. The sandy soil is a distinct marker of a cross timber, plus the blackjacks and the post oaks. Then we have the limestone slope woodlands. So it's a little bit more of a disturbed area where over succession things have overwhelmed the prairie, overshaded the prairie. So now we have a disturbed kind of very, I would say stress forest because it's limestone. So not a lot of potential nutrients in the topsoil. Then we have the riparian bottomlands, which you were hiking, which gets flooded on an annual basis. There's streams nearby. That's over there at the nature center. You can see the water line down here. And these trees are hydrophilic. They love water. They can stand weeks under a lot of water. Brings a lot of nutrients to the area. And then of course your urban forest, and that's mostly what, when people think of a forest here, is like, they are very dominant trees. You'll notice how the canopy are they're pretty. They're all very shaped. There's gaps between here. A lot of these trees were planted. Now I think most people are considered native trees instead of myrtles and all the things that are not native. So that's it for the type of forest that we have at the nature at Fort Worth. So let's just a little bit of cross timbers. I know Michelle might hit a little bit with this on the prairie side, but the cross timbers is kind of like a belt that runs all the way through mostly Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. And it's a mosaic of upland and forest and savanna. And savanna means a little bit more prairie underneath, scattered in between the trees. And the presence of oaks is dominant. And the purpose is, it used to be a frontier, a post, because there's a book actually written about the cast iron forest, about this type of habitat. It's endemic to the US. And as you can see a little bit closer in this picture, you can see where the east cross timbers, and then with the western, this kind of will be a little bit more over here, but that is unique habitat. The sad thing is that a lot of our eastern cross timbers is not as whole. It's been kind of developed. So this is a little anecdote of the cast iron forest book that I recommend. I should not easily forget the mortal toil and the vexation of flesh and spirit that we underwent occasionally in our wandering through the cross timbers. It was like a struggle through a forest of a cast iron. So that's another one. The description of cross timber is also known as a cast iron forest, because imagine you went through prairie and all of a sudden you see this belt of forest you have to go through with greenbrier and sandy soil. That was hard for them to go through. So a little bit of difference. What's the difference, right? Why is it an eastern cross timbers? It's higher elevation to the east. The travelers call it Monte Verde or Monte Grande, which means grand forest. A few tracts of undisturbed woodlands are still remain. The eastern cross timbers tend to be a little bit more rich, more fertile than the western. Again, both of them have sandy soil. The trees tend to be oaks as the dominant. The terrain on the western cross timbers seems to be more hilly because of the limestone. You see more pockets, so it would be more savanna, steep slopes, irregular surfaces. And you'll see prairie forest ecotone. So that's where the two habitats meet, which kind of it's very interesting because you get to see a little bit diversity of wildlife as well. And what else? Sorry, I'm moving pictures around here. Post oak, blackjack, oak woodlands characterize much of the west cross timbers. So indicating trees. So this, if you want to know if I have a cross timbers area nearby, if you have sandy soil and you have more dominant blackjack or post oak, sorry, there you go. That might be a good chance that you have a sliver of a cross timbers or a remnant tree of a cross timbers in that area. Very interesting growth. They kind of prune themselves. Some trees tend to do so because as they get higher up, they get more resources here. So they're reserving energies. So you'll see knobs on some of these trees. They have the beautiful contorting branches. The blackjack looks like I will say like a duck foot, but very glossy. While the post oak seems to be like, it looks like a cross. And then of course, both of them have acorns that are great for wildlife. So the existence of cross timbers is important because they provide past climate data. Some of the trees that we have at the Nature Center were recorded by in the 1980s, and they were already 270 years old. So imagine now. So they provide information for scientists on altered biodiversity because they become a climax community. Conservation opportunities, they have a lot of history. I mean, these trees have survived through a lot. A link to our past or heritage. And like I said, this is a picture of, I think it's a blackjack, to be honest, how tall and gnarly it grows. It really, really, it's a beautiful, if you look at the canopy of them. And like I said, 200 to 300-year-old posts can be found at the Nature Center. 1980 was the coring, and then of Lake Mineral Well State Park. Composed of riparian bottomlands, so you were in it. Of course, there was no water. Composed of water-tolerant trees, that would be your sycamores, your ash trees, Texas green ash. They are definitely supported by the floodplains and the drainage. So they will get water, retain it, and then eventually it will evaporate and be able to drain out somehow. They become great trees because they're part of the floodplain, especially in the Nature Center. They will be able to prevent water from just rushing down to Lake Worth, especially in the forest. And they become very good sanctuaries for migratory birds in the winter because they buffer the winds. They provide areas for them to be protected. And the principal canopy of trees will be bur oak, sycamores, black widow, cottonwoods, and black walnuts. And the majority of the trees, riparian forests, are in memory due to the fact that Trinity River has been evolving since people's settlement. It used to be Trinity River. It's not, the name is not because it has, I would say this, in fact, this is not a tributary of three. It's actually because the Spanish who named it, they were celebrating La Santísima Trinidad, and therefore it became the Trinity River. But I think the indigenous people called it the River of Canoes, and I think the French were going to go kind of mimic that, but Trinity won. And we have the West and, boy, just one line. The Clear in the West, and Dallas has the Elm in the East. Okay, I'm going to stop because I have 5 questions here. Oh, has Darren Forest? Okay. I'll have a picture of that book in a few minutes as we finish. So we'll have that. So of course, this is Dallas in the background, and you can see the West Fork of the Trinity River. So this bottomland forest is really important because it buffers. It definitely also becomes a place where groundwater can kind of water percolate down. It filters. It just becomes a great habitat for those animals seeking sanctuary. Definitely slows down the floods, minimizes erosion. There's so many cool factors that have having a bottomland. Flooding is normally shallow, and depending on how much water we get, but it can last a month. And the river is the lifeblood of the bottoms. And again, an annual precipitation, water, silt, everything just it's great to find all sorts of things. That's where you find your cottonmouths and your copperheads, if you're looking closely. Cottonwood, one of my favorite trees, just because it's just so big and massive. And if you ever look at the canopy of it, it kind of seems like it's always making noise as the wind hits the leaves. They glisten, they kind of shake. If you have a female tree, so this is a dioecious plant, so there's a male tree and a female tree. If you have a female tree, of course, you'll figure it out soon because you have the catkins with a lot of that cotton just coming out, so that they become not a very preferable tree in someone's yard. But if you have cottonwoods, that means there's enough water for it to be sustaining there, growing there. Beautiful triangular shaped deltoid leaves and the catkins right here, that indicates a female tree. And of course, the black willow, very cool tree, definitely loves to have its roots wet. You probably saw some when you were staining on the edge or dip netting. This is a beautiful tree, has a great shape. There's a lot of things that were used. The chemistry component of this tree is remarkable, but that loves water quite a bit. We have several of them at the boardwalk. And the leaves look like long fingers. Prairie savanna, I won't stay for long because I know Prairie, you'll hit this, but this is what a savanna. So FYI, a thicket is really dense. A forest is somewhat different sizes. And a savanna, it's just sporadic trees here and there. So that's why they say prairie savanna, because you have some oak, live oaks and other trees there. A lot of, this one's disturbed because it has a lot of prickly pear cactus. This is an old map of the Fort Worth Prairie. So yes, technically Fort Worth would have been a prairie habitat, but we kind of developed it to a forest. Dominant by native bunch of grasses with scattered clumps of trees in there. That remember the clay, it's a factor for them, underlies in the prairie. And fire is one of the disturbances often seen. Of course, prairie loves or needs fires, and at the Nature Center we have prescribed fires on almost a regular basis. And I think we're gonna have one, I'm not sure how soon, but usually we have them in the winter. And that has helped keep our prairie. And among hardwood trees, oaks uniquely are resistant or more sturdy to fire, hardy to fire. And of course, everybody's familiar with the Oregon forest because we have it all over. And as we drive to or commute to our work, we might see trees and the Trinity Trail. So it's a mixture of remnants and native forest with ones that are introduced. These soils are a hodgepodge of whatever was there and was put in there. Again, this is the Trinity Trail. So as you notice, very clear, this is what most people might consider the forest now. But it's an urban forest, which is still valuable because it produces a lot of that, helps the community. Like I said, I like cartoons. It is called a tree, and they serve a vital function in the ecosystem by providing a natural anchor to chain up trash cans. That's the urban nature trail if you ever go on one. And urban forestry, just side notes, the Nature Center, Fort Worth is considered a tree city of the USA. It's one of the oldest tree cities of the US. But the first mark of urban forestry practice was in 1873 when the city charter declared it legal to hitch a horse to a tree. And the city hired its forest arborist in the 1920s. So it's a city, and we have been part of this tree city of the US in 1978. We have Arbor Day that we celebrate, I think in April, and that's Rob Denkhaus, our director, right there. And I think this is kind of cool because I got it from when he was doing his slide. You see this tree? That many municipalities have adopted tree ordinance to counteract wholesale bulldozing of development. But if no one's monitoring, this is what can happen. So the success of this tree is very limited because where is he going to get any of the nutrients? It's really stressed out. Oh. I have a snake to my side and just making noise now. And of course, quality of ordinance and enforcement are mixed. So this happened, I think, in 2021, either 2020 or 2022 recently. This in the past 2. So again, that bulldozing, it happened, and I like how he dressed. He's speaking for the trees. The Mockingbird Estates, they just started wiping some of the old trees, and the residents knew they're very valuable, so they were in shock that this permit came through. Oops, I think I'm just skipping that one. We'll go back. So FYI, heritage trees are really cool. There's this wonderful website that the city provides that allows you to get a map of the trees that are considered valuable, either historical or by size. And I'm going to show you a couple that are here in the Nature Center. So you were seeing them. I don't know if Michael might have mentioned, or Michael Smith, at the boardwalk. We have the chickapin oak trees. That is a little motte that is found in Fort Worth. And we have a couple of them right there by the bench. Oops, let's see, I'm clicking too fast. And then you have, I don't know if you were able to hike to the green ash, which is also at that area by the boardwalk. And then the cross timbers, which of course is an ancient forest that is, it's found at the Nature Center. You can go to this website and you can see what's nearby. As you can see, there's various trees that are still considered. Some tell you what happened to them. So it's cool to find what's in your neighborhood and see what's the closest of a regional champion or a heritage tree. As we come closer to our activity, I wanted to say that trees, there's so much that they do for an urban setting. They, they actually reflect some of the sunlight, absorb CO2. They let the rainfall intercept it so it doesn't start just running all over our roads, especially if they have soil that helps them percolate the water down slower, reduces runoff, but what the canopy can capture. Of course, we enjoyed in my neighborhood, we have some of the cool, very tall, good-looking pecan trees nearby, and people sometimes plant them. And of course, overall, the urban forestry can reduce some of the urban heat islands that we create by having so much roads in our area, and kind of reduce the runoff and increase infiltration. And of course, during the summer, I bet everybody does this. In the summer, it's always about the shade, not the distance. So I know sometimes I look for the very small tree to get some shade, because being in the sun coming back from shopping sometimes can be, you can cook an egg. So the city of Fort Worth has an ordinance. I'm sorry, the pictures, I couldn't get the PDF to print darker, but it has an ordinance. So this is what it recommends. Remember, the city of Fort Worth wants 30% canopy to be maintained. They have some protected trees here. You can look at that site, going to their website, just talk city urban ordinance, and you can see large canopies. So you have pretty much most natives. There's a couple, I think, that I noticed that might Chinese pistache, yeah, Italian stone pine, you might, golden tree, but again, they haven't updated it, or Japanese maple. So I'm just thinking, there's other things that can go, but they still have some of the good trees to contain. Okay, guys, so this is on their last 45 minutes of our presentation. This is where we are going to kind of be more interactive with one another, in a sense, through Zoom. And we're going to talk about dichotomous keys, because I know you want to know some of the trees. I always wanted to know what's growing nearby. What is this? So dichotomous key helps us break down into more identifiable items. So for example, here we know animals. If it has wings and it has feathers, it's a bird. If it has no feathers, it's an insect. No wings, it can be a mammal, it could fit, and then so on, so on. For a forestry, this is some of the things you have to consider. So you're walking in the forest and you might be like, okay, I see leaves. If you cannot see the canopy, you can look nearby, and you can look at the leaves and see if it's a simple leaf, it's just one, or compound leaf. And you can, and sometimes it's hard, especially if they fall from the tree, because you might just get a piece of one. But look surrounding, or if you can see it, if you're able to see the canopy well with binoculars, that can help you. So compound leaves is multiple leaflets in one rachis. So you can see this. And you can see pinnate compound means an odd number. And you can see all these leaflets attached to this rachis. And then palmate compound means it's all kind of joined in one common point. So just a basic understanding is simple or compound. That's the first thing you might ask. And then once you get more comfortable, you can start at pinnate, odd pinnate, you know, or palmate. So just a little bit of clarification on this. So we have a simple leaf attached to the branch, or we have a compound leaf attached to the branch. And those are leaflets. But how can you tell if it's a simple or a compound? So that is because when you look at the attachment on the branch, if it has a bud at the base, that is a leaflet. That is the compound leaf. You know, so that's definitely one. They won't have any bud at where it attaches to the rachis, sorry. So this is a compound leaf. So like I said, sometimes it's hard to identify it due to the fact that you will see one leaf fall from the whole leaflet. So another thing to consider, and this will help 100%, if it's opposite or alternate. There's only a couple of trees that are opposite, and ash trees are opposite, but most of the trees are alternate. And so where the leaflet or the rachis comes attached, if it's opposite, it's not opposite, opposite's here. Alternate is an alternate leaf attachment to opposite. I think yes. Sorry guys. So this is opposite. So like I said, this is ash trees will be a good example of this. Well, this will be a good example of a red oak of alternate compound leaves. Well, it's not compound, but alternate attachment. So if you go into further botany, you might want to look a little bit about the shape and the leaf margins. That will also help you kind of differentiate trees in general by the shape of the leaves. So undulate, entire means smooth. Serrate, that's like a not possum, and entire will be like possum haw. This is rusty black haw. Crenate, it's a little bit more lobe or lacerate, has more of the sinuses or openings here. Leaf base, that's definitely if you're going botany, but the shapes are really important. And linear means just straight, so that would be like the willow. Oblong, elliptical, it kind of tapers at the base and at the top. Lanceolate, it looks like a spear. Ovate, it means just like a shape of an egg. Ovovate means more wider on top. Reniform, it looks like a kidney, kind of side kidney. Spatulate opens up. And then also orbicular, that will be kind of like, I won't tell you the answer because I think it's a tree that we have here nearby. So for example, this here, this rusty black haw, and I know since we're doing it through Zoom, it's hard for us to see all the detail. So this will be, what do you think? Can you see the branching? Oh, oops, I just did it, sorry. So you can see here, it's opposite, elliptical to ovovate. So you will have descriptions in your field guides of both because the leaf variant, they're not always the same way, the same shape, and it's finely serrated. So you can finally tell there's little serration on the leaf margin. Now again, that's harder to see from being through Zoom. So let's try our luck. I'm going to put two samples here. And if you want to try it, go for it. Number 4 is here. Number 2 is here. Both of them are trees. If you can text, chat, or speak out, whichever you feel comfortable. Try your luck on this. Try it. It's practice makes perfect, kind of. Okay, so let me see. Ooh. Ursula. Someone knows their trees. Oh, I shouldn't say that because then everybody's going to look at her answers. Okay. I just clicked on one, so guys, sorry. My fingers are faster than, so I won't click. I'll get my hand off this number 4. Okay, I see answers. I see hackberry, redbud for number 4, 2 cedar. Okay, give another minute or less. Ginkgo, wow. I wish we had a ginkgo. I just said 4. Looks like a ginkgo. In Mexico City, where I'm from, we had a lot of ginkgo trees. Okay, so we're gonna say, so for example, this one, it is a cedar elm tree. It is one of our most commonly found trees in areas of succession. It grows pretty fast compared to some of the oaks. It's alternate, as you can see here. It has serrated margins, and the shape is ovate to elliptic. So it depends on what leaf and structure. Remember, the leaf shape can be a factor of the amount of light they get and what part of the canopy they're found. So on this one, it's one of my favorite trees because it's great for pollinators. And let me see. And this is a redbud. So this is alternate, as you can see. I didn't have any opposite that was available for me to show. Orbicular and entire because it has a smooth margin. We'll try our hand when we go out in the field, and I'll print some of these out so we can test out or field leaf ID quiz. Okay, let's see. Okay, guys, so we're coming to the part that we get into groups. So hopefully everybody had an opportunity to read the notes about this Morriswood activity. This is for Project Weil. It's something that we do sometimes in our group settings or for school group, high school groups. So what we're gonna do, I think Mary Beth was able to break you down sporadically into 5 mini groups. So this is, and what's gonna happen is team 1 will be rooting for proposal 1, which is was part of the package that was sent out. Team 2 will be rooting for proposal 2, adding their own flavors. Team 3, proposal 3. Team 4, you get to actually pick whatever hodgepodge of each of the proposal and make it your own. And team 5, you just been part of the city council and you have to select one of the proposals of the 4 proposals. So Mary Beth, are you there? May I?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so what's gonna happen is the first group will get, let me ask everybody, did everybody read this or had an opportunity to see this, at least peruse through this? Okay, I see some shaking heads. So what's gonna happen is that you are gonna sporadically show up in a group, and team 1, I don't know if we can label them. Mary Beth will be the proposal 1, team 2 will proposal 2, team 3 proposal 3, and team 4 proposal 4. And the lucky whoever's in team 5, you just have to be listening when everybody presents, because you're going to be the ones that they're going to decide. You're going to decide what Morriswood will be, what's going to happen to them. So when we're in our groups, please consider, even though you might say, I don't like proposal 1, you're going to try to put your mindset and propose that. So if you had read this, you will notice that this is, someone donated 250 acres of woods, and you will have to kind of read the facts and the proposals, and the proposals are in this, was part of the package. So proposal 1, either you kept it, proposal 2, you kind of manage it and cut some for wood, or proposal 3, you made it into a mall in the area. And so what to do, you will see, listen to the facts or read the facts. You will have someone present at the time of your group to speak what the proposal and what your opinions are and why we should select that proposal. Try to convince the city council which is team 5, to decide which one is the best, why is the best. And the team 5, if you select one, why did you select that proposal? Is everybody clear? Anybody have any questions? Anybody you want to speak out before we move into groups? Okay, it's as clear as mud. Is that a yes? Okay. So Mary Beth, let's do the magic. So we will let's have no more than 20 minutes for y'all to read and discuss your proposals, depending on what group you're in. And I'll keep this on. So again, this is my first time doing this through Zoom. So we'll see how this works outside of the room.
Okay. And Laura, you can jump into any room that you want to, if you want to. Okay. So here we go. Everybody's going to go. We've got 5 rooms.
Are the rooms labeled so they know which proposal?
Yes, they're labeled room 1, room 2, room 3.
Okay. Good luck, guys.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
They're gone.
Okay. So it's those 2? Okay.
I can send them a message when they've got 5 minutes left.
Okay, that sounds good. So I hope this works.
It will. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
It is weird because I
think you forgot me. I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Get to class, Becca. Come
Oh,
on.
you're in.
I'm skipping.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, that's okay.
There you go.
It looks like Sandra hasn't been put in a group either.
Okay.
Yeah, Sandra's still showing as well.
Okay, so Glenda Walker, Joan Carey, not join.
I think they're in the, we're all on the committee, aren't we?
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I'm on the committee, so.
Okay. So we'll see.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna give them a couple of minutes to kind of read it again if they didn't have a chance to.
Okay, so.
Because it was sent to them, correct? They got a.
Well, someone was asking on the chat, so I posted it again on the chat of the link.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. And hopefully someone will be.
So 20 minutes from now, that'll be 8:35.
Yeah, I think
I'll
we're
send them a
good.
message at 8:30 that they've got 5 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me go jump in and see what room 1. Okay, that's the one I would select, but we'll see the proposal. Let me jump in. Thank you, Mary Beth.
You're welcome.
What'd you eat for dinner, Melinda? What'd you eat for dinner?
I had velvet taco.
Oh, yum. They have good queso.
Huh?
Which
They have
tacos
good
you get?
queso.
I'm sorry, Brent was talking over you. Can you say that again?
The story of my life. The queso is so good.
Well, she had said it twice. I thought maybe I could finally say something. Damn.
I know you. It's hard for you not to talk. So tell me.
Hey, I've been sitting here quiet the whole time because I'm working on my hotel and plans and everything for my next trip.
I love planning trips.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna make a run down to the valley for a 3-day weekend.
You are? When are you going?
Weekend after next. Next weekend's family day at Charlton.
the-
So I can't go, but the following weekend, there's too much stuff they were seeing last weekend. I can't deal with it.
He's
Yay.
going to the week of the field trip.
Yeah, sorry, I won't be on the field trip. I stayed for the seining, so I think I can miss the forest one since I'm not actually doing anything on it.
Do you have family there?
No. Well, I mean, all of nature and the birds of the air are my
All the dragonflies are your family.
How long a drive is it?
8 hours.
Do you go by yourself?
Oh, yeah. I've been 4 or 5 times, and the quickest I ever did a turnaround was down and back in, that's including a stop in Corpus, a stop in Austin, and dropping my kids off at my parents' house in Granbury. I was down and back in 72 hours.
That does not sound
Doing it
fun.
wrong, Brent.
Hey, that was for a rare bird chase, and I got 3, 4 life birds that weekend, and it was well worth it.
I think it's fun to drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And that one life bird that I went down for initially was like a mega rarity, an S3. So
What birds did you see?
yeah, that was a long time ago. I don't remember yesterday.
Whooping cranes.
No, one of them, well, down there I went specifically
I'm making
for,
things up.
one of them was I think not a snowy plover, but a collared plover. That's what it was. Collared plover or plover, depending on your definition.
I was about to say, I thought that was pronounced plover.
Well, it depends on who you talk to.
Okay.
Because my friend and I, who's been birding for 30 years, we have that argument all the time. You say love, not lobe, and I'm like, whatever. So, but you say over, not over.
He's
Hover,
taking any Glover.
hover, not hover. So anyway,
What town do you go to?
I must stay in Harlingen this time, because I think it's closest to where I need to be for what I'm going after.
Well, that sounds like fun.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
Ryan doesn't like to drive.
I don't
Oh.
like to drive. That's
Oh,
I
really?
live 7 minutes from my job. The farthest I drive is about to the nature center.
Yeah, but when you're getting out of town and you're going through changes
a
in
road
the
trip.
landscape, I like
I
that.
love it.
I'm an excellent passenger on a road trip. I don't fall asleep or anything, but I don't like to drive.
Okay.
Saturday I went to Texarkana for the day, just because.
I think after you raise a family and you have a bunch of children, which is kind of like being a teacher, it's nice to be away by yourself in a car.
Right.
I live by myself, so it's perfect
There you
all
go.
the time.
There you go. So,
I'm going to
I
Albuquerque.
never mind that.
I'm going to Albuquerque to do the balloon fiesta in
Oh, wow,
the end of
cool.
September.
Have you
I
ever
do
been
have-
there?
I do have family.
Yeah,
there.
my best friend lives there, so I've been every single
Oh.
year since we were 18. But
Isn't it
I've only
great?
been to the balloon fiesta once. It's beautiful.
It is great.
I have a cousin and her family that live in Albuquerque, and I've always said one of these days I'm going to go see that thing, but I never have.
Yeah, you
Good
get
luck
up
in
at like
Albuquerque.
2 in the morning or 3 in the morning.
Yeah, for dawn
Okay.
patrol. I'll be blowing up my Facebook, Brent, so you'll be able to see all my pictures.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
The people there are so nice. When you
Yeah,
just
I love
walk
it
around
out
the
there.
grounds, they're like, come over here, help us hold this balloon down. Jump in this basket with us.
Cool. Well, I did.
Yeah,
just-
apparently there's this big giant rattlesnake sculpture thing that they just posted. And so
Yep.
On what stake is this? So I took a picture of it and sent it to my best friend. I said, okay, I want to go see this too while I'm there.
Oh,
So
is
she
that
said,
there?
okay.
Is
Yeah,
that
it's
there?
outside of
Okay.
Albuquerque.
Oh, cool. Yeah, always wanted to see that. That's like the 3rd or 4th time I've seen that picture.
Yeah, who knows?
Do they have Darth
Uh,
Vader this year?
What?
Probably.
Did you see it before?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Darth Vader?
That one has security people around it because it's so
Oh,
popular.
wow.
My favorite was Smokey the Bear when I went and saw it.
Cool.
I guess I like the bumblebees.
Yeah, those are cute. Those are super cute. I bought a little children's book that has all the pictures of the special shapes that I always share with my kids. They love it.
Yeah. My son lived there for 5 years and he had a friend who had a balloon and we went up in it. And I'd always heard that when you land, it could really mess up your legs, your knees, if you land really hard. So we started to land and I just like sat down on the bottom of the basket. And they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't want to get beat up. Sometimes you get drugged sideways.
Yeah, no, that's like riding in a helicopter for me. No, thank you. No,
No,
thanks.
thank you.
Oh man, there's nothing I love more than riding in helicopters. It is so freaking fun. Especially, especially when I was in the Army, though, we had the doors open, hanging our legs out the side and doing combat maneuvers. That was.
You just muted yourself.
Oh,
Don't tell him.
oh,
I like
I don't know
helicopters too.
I pick on Brent too much, I think.
I keep
Sorry,
doing that.
Brent.
I
No,
don't know how I do
Some
it.
people just beg to be picked on.
I
It's
mean,
hey, I
look
can
at
dish
it.
it out as well as I can take it. So, it's first
That's
certainly
right.
on me.
I love helicopters.
Oh man, they're awesome. I've flown in 3 military helicopters and 1 civilian one. So
Well, where I used to work, they have a helicopter so they can monitor the pipeline. They fly
yeah.
over the pipeline right away.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
One of the Jet Rangers, I'm assuming.
Jet Rangers?
Yeah, is that one?
Oh, no, it's a Robinson.
Robinson, okay.
Little tiny one, little light.
Yeah, one of the egg beaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the summer, it's really, really hot if you sit on the engine in the
I
back
bet.
seat.
I
Yeah.
bet it would be, yeah.
And the pilot is a mechanic, which is just wonderful. He's
Well,
nice.
that's good. Yeah, at least you can trust him then to know he's picked it out.
Yeah.
I had a pilot friend in the Army who said he would never fly commercial because you see the pilot just walk up and get into the aircraft, start it up and take off. They have no idea if the thing's been serviced well enough to fly or not. But in the Army or the Air Force, whatever, the pilots are required to go and make all these big long checks and look at the outside and the inside. And
Good. Yeah, my friend at the water district would go and take the camera and do the photography with the doors off. And he got a picture of a bald eagle one time.
oh wow,
Really cool.
I've always wanted to do that. I had a friend who lived here who's now moved because he lost his job, but he had a Cessna and he was always saying he's going to take me up flying over the city to get photos with the doors off, and never happened before he moved.
Joan, is that a music stand behind you? Are you muted?
Yes, but it's my husband's.
Is he a musician?
No, he's an aspiring musician.
That's the same thing.
What does he play?
Violin.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So has he been playing very long?
Not that long.
That is great. He took it up later in life.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
He's one of those people whose aim is to learn everything, I think.
I love it. I love it. I agree. I'm trying. That's why I'm in this group.
There you go.
Does he take lessons?
He has. He's not now.
Yeah. Are you a musician also?
No, not in many, many years.
What you used to do?
I used to play the flute.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
I used to play the flute.
Yep.
I wasn't ever really great at it.
Were you in band?
Okay, yeah, I was in band. I was all right. I was right. I sat, how they have the chairs and here's first chair and last chair. I was always like solidly right in the middle.
There you go.
And I was okay with that. A little bit of an underachiever, but
Well, we are not who we were when we were young, that's for sure.
well, and I found the flute the other day and I tried to play it. Well, I say the other day, a few months back, I tried to play it. It wasn't happening. I don't know what to do to make it make noise again, but it wasn't doing it. I thought
I had a related experience when I was middle-aged. I quit my job and went back to graduate school, and I thought, oh, now I'm going to have free time, and I bought another flute.
Did you?
Yeah, and I wasn't nearly as good at it as I remembered. And therefore it was not as rewarding as I remembered.
Yeah, it's a little harder than you remember it being.
Yep.
I just told myself it's because it needs new pads.
There you go. I like
Sure,
that.
it's all me, but I was like, well, you know, I just need some new pads. All right, I'll have to go get that taken care of. But I, you know, obviously never did, but that's okay. That's all right.
Well, I took piano lessons, and before I signed up for piano lessons, I learned how to play chopsticks and Down at Papa Joe's. So I took piano lessons for about 5 years, and guess what I can play? Chopsticks and Down at Papa Joe's.
I obviously never played any musical instrument, but what in the world is Down at Papa Joe's? Don't know that one.
I don't know that one either.
I don't know. I'd have to. I can't hum a tune. It's where there's a treble and then there's a bass, and I can do the bass, and so it's kind of fun to play that.
So guys, I was into skipping around rooms, and they're really actually thinking about it to the point is like, what's the demographics of this Morris Woods? And I'm like, oh. You know, it's just a wood, but
It's
they're
a really good group this year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're taking it
ahead, give them big heads.
Yep.
So that's great. I mean,
Now if we can just get them to have their cameras on.
they won't
Exactly.
be, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean,
We went round and round about that last year, Ryan, so don't try to beat a dead horse.
No, I'm not. I just think it helps being able to recognize people's faces
Yeah.
for the field trips.
Right,
Well,
and I saw
and
that
to
you
prove
wrote
they're
that.
really
I
here.
I was
We
like, yeah,
can't,
you
we
know,
can't make them, but when you let people know that you'd like it to happen, a lot of them will turn their cameras on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remember, and if I don't remember, you can help me remember next week. I want to mention it. Say, you know, you don't have to put your camera on, but it'd be really nice if you did.
Well, and especially that, you know, when you start getting on at like 5:45, when people are just chatting and everybody has it on the screen like this, it gives
Yeah.
everybody the opportunity to recognize faces.
Right.
So if you want to turn it off once the presenter starts speaking or whatever, that's fine, I guess. But the bottom line is we all know that once that camera's off, you're having a hard time listening still. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
And
it's
that
just
was
nice. It's just nice to recognize everybody's faces.
and that's what I'm saying. We went round and round. My argument being, if the camera's not on, we have no proof they're even there, and you're
No.
kind of required to be present. So
Well, you know, it's also kind of interesting when you log out and you're talking and there's like one person still logged on, but they're not saying anything, and just like, I wonder why they're just sitting there. I wonder.
yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, and after I said that about, yeah, y'all turn on yours or whatever, you know, do what like Ryan said or whatever, you should turn on your cameras if you can. And then I turned mine off, went and bought dinner. So I felt bad.
Oh, that's where you went.
I did.
Well, I was here
hungry.
eating dinner, but I had my camera off. I was here, but I was eating dinner.
But yeah,
I mean,
I don't know
I think
what
it's
you get
nice.
from- Sorry.
What?
What did you get from Velvet Taco? I'm jealous.
I got 2 Nashville hot tofu
Okay.
and 1 beer battered cauliflower.
Mm,
Yum.
okay, never
So
mind.
good. Before you make a comment about, well, if you put some meat on there, it tastes better.
Yeah.
No, I'm in the no meat.
Yeah, seriously. If you go get the Nashville hot tofu,
Okay.
then get extra pickles.
Oh.
So good with the extra.
Have y'all seen that Cheetos has come out with a Nashville hot chicken flavored Cheetos?
No.
You can only get them at Dollar General and like, I can't remember what else they said, but I've never had a hot Cheeto. I like
No,
jalapeno
it was
Cheetos, but
interesting.
they're supposed to
We
be
went-
spicy.
When we went to
that's
Spain, you see like different flavors. Like I'm trying to remember what the flavor of potato chips was, like regular Ruffles, or not Ruffles, but like Lay's
They
potato
have like
chips.
biscuits and gravy. I've seen all kinds of crazy flavors.
There was something up there that made no sense. Like I was looking at it, I wish I could remember what it was. I wish I'd taken a picture. It was the craziest potato chip flavor you can imagine. I don't know. I can't remember. We did go to this restaurant.
Pringles.
Huh?
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
What was it?
Chicken and waffles Pringles the other day.
I don't think that was it.
Yeah, I was like,
When we went to Maine, though, y'all, we went to this restaurant called Mainly Mexican because we're like, we want Mexican food. We want to see what they do up here. It was ridiculous, y'all.
horrible.
It was not good. It was not good.
We made that mistake on our honeymoon in New Hampshire. We were craving Mexican food, found a place, ate there, and oh my God, it was just as awful as I should have known it would be.
Oh.
So what did you eat, Melinda? Because that's what I told Michael and Kenneth. We went out to Acton Nature Center and said, let's go eat Mexican food. I said, oh, excuse me, Tex-Mex. Because, you know, the way things are cooked, my mom doesn't have, the oven is not in use. So we don't bake anything. It's always over the fire.
Right.
So what was interesting?
Well, what I normally do, like if I go to a new place and I kind of wanted to try something different, but I thought, well, I'm just going to get cheese enchiladas because it's a good kind of baseline. You're going to get an idea. So I ordered the cheese enchiladas, and it wasn't enchiladas, it was an enchilada. And it was cheese enchilada, you know, and they're like, and I said, you know, with onion in it. You're like, can we put onion in? Sure. So it's a flour tortilla. The size of a burrito with tomatoes, like chopped tomatoes, onions, bell pepper.
Awesome.
Nope. And I know something else. And it's wrapped like a burrito and it's on the plate. And then they put like some cheese sauce on it.
Wow.
And I was like,
it's a new perspective of enchiladas. First, enchiladas from growing up, we eat flour enchiladas. Flour it's not a staple. It's corn is a staple. So we eat a lot of corn tortillas.
Yeah.
Right.
By the border, like in Juarez, El Paso, that area, they do eat a lot of wheat, but that's just because they're close to the border. And enchiladas, in meaning the word enchilada means it's spicy. So they tend to be more spicy in the south part of Mexico than the northern part of Mexico. But yeah, it's interesting. If you ever want to hit a little bit more, you have to get to the neighborhoods where you might question why am I here, especially if you're not bilingual. But definitely you get the ambience. It's like if you go to another Korean or Vietnamese, you kind of have to go to those like why they won't understand what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. But
well, I really loved
oh, kitty.
Yeah. Like when I would go work out in Midland all the time, I used to have to go out to Midland, and they have good Mexican food. I mean, it's amazing compared to honestly to anywhere else, really. That's my favorite. But you know, and then we go to New Mexico and they do those flat enchiladas, the flat.
And everything's covered in green chili.
Oh, good. I really like that better than just like Tex-Mex.
Oh, good.
Okay, it's 8:35. And
So
I'm
are they
hungry.
coming back?
Are you ready to bring them back?
Are they?
No, we're still talking.
I agree though. I like corn tortillas. I don't like flour tortillas.
Hang around after, Laura. I'll tell you a story to blow your mind about Mexican food, really.
Okay. So I guess we can bring them in if.
Okay, you can bring them in. Y'all can talk about Mexican food. They've got 60 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Or this is my kitty Lucy, and she's 20 years old.
Oh, it looks good for a 20-year-old.
Sure does.
So annoying. All she does is cry and pee out of the litter box. But I love her. She's quiet.
That sounds like me. All I do is cry. Right?
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Hope your proposals were productive. I mean, in a sense, you talked them out, and I heard some of you speaking. Your biases are non-biases, and now we're gonna go through groups by teams, and hopefully you have someone that's willing to kind of share your proposal out to the team number 5. I forgot who's in team number 5, but team number 5, you're gonna listen to those proposals as city council does. And I know Sean was one of them. So Sean, I'm already picking on you because I see you. So if you have your cameras on, that's great, because then we kind of see familiar faces and we can say he was part of that group. So Sean is one of the city council. We'll call you the head, what is it, the terminology? The main spokesperson for the city council. Anybody, any team wants to go first, and then that team, just tell your proposal, tell the highlights of your proposal. If you spice it up with different things, try to convince the city council, which is more than Sean, but he will speak for, for the team as well, I guess. And see what city council proposes with Morriswood. So any team prefers to go first?
I can
Number
go
one
first.
can go first.
Okay, so I see who said Becca. I see Becca, so I see
Yeah, I
Becca.
think you beat me, Becca. You go
I'm
ahead.
just trying to get it over and done with. So
You'll do fine. This is great. This is what proposal are you presenting?
All right, so we are proposal number 2, which is selling to the tree farm.
Okay.
So can I go ahead?
Well, if you want to say your teammates and just, I think you highlight on your screen which your teammate was. So who was on your team? No, just they'll speak out, and I think I see a highlighted square around my frame. So Becca, who was in your team?
Carmen, Dana, I'm looking to see Jan, Evan, and Elizabeth, I believe. Am I missing anyone?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Oh, yours.
All right. So the great thing about our proposal is that it is the perfect balance between economy and nature. We are taking the entire ecosystem into account, including the citizens who will be part of the lumber industry. There's going to be a lot of economic benefits for the town, more education, social programs, jobs for foresters, loggers, truckers, and mill workers. Simpson Tree Farm, which is who we are wanting to sell to, is an experienced and responsible company, and they already have an advisory committee set up with people who represent the whole of the community. In the contract, we will have no harvesting the oldest growth forest, which means we will still have a lot of those carbon sequestration benefits, and we can maybe even continue getting carbon credits. And they have agreed to have a state forester designate the sections that they are prohibited to cut down. So they won't decide it, the state forester will. Another great thing about this proposal is that it is still leaving enough habitat for wildlife so that they don't move into the human areas and encroach too much. And we still have a lot of the benefits of trees, reducing the urban heat. We still have the filtration for our so we have cleaner water. We still have the recharge of the groundwater and reduced runoff to help with flood control. And another added benefit is that citizens can use the land to enjoy the nature because we'll have trails put in. Whereas before, this was just privately owned land, so no one besides the owners were really allowed to enjoy it. So this will increase ecotourism and citizen enjoyment, and also will increase property values. And that is it.
Okay, Sean, let's try this. Sean, anybody of your team, do you have at least 1 or 2 questions? If not, we'll move to second team.
Yeah, well, one of our questions we had with the proposal is should anything happen to the tree company, I guess what safeguards would be put in place to ensure that the part of the land that's being preserved would continue so going forth. Obviously we would want to make sure that old growth forest that is being protected for wildlife as well as recreational use for hiking and kayaking or whatnot, that would be in perpetuity and make sure that that was not, developed at some later date.
So that would be written into the contract that these areas designated by the state forester would be preserved. If it went, let's say that the company went into bankruptcy, then that would of course have to be litigated by the bankruptcy court. But that original contract with the city would hold a lot of weight in the bankruptcy court, if that is where if that's what your question is about.
Yeah, no, a little bit. Does Marcy or Taylor or Teresa or Susan, do you guys have any follow-up questions in regards to their response?
No, not at this time.
Just if they would be open to like maybe, I mean, these things take like several like sessions and things, but would they be open to zone specific, like if we created a new zoning for a project like this, for like zone specific restrictions, things like that, so that if the property does end up getting sold or transferred, to prevent any type of legalities in the end, that it would keep it something for the future, outside of just the old forest being maintained. We would want it to be some type of, I don't know, Fort Worth has way more special zonings than we do, but I know there's some very specific ones that can protect land when it changes hands like that. So I just wanted to know if they'd be open to something like that.
Yeah, I think that they would be open to that.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. That's how, you're right. This will take several presentations and several things for the city council to select. But it's a good start, and those are good questions. And I'm glad, Jan, thank you, and Becca and Dana for helping answer those questions. Okay, so that was team 2. Any other team wants to go next?
Team 1, I think we're ready.
Yes, go for it.
Okay, team 1 is the first proposal. We feel that it is the most socially responsible measure, and it is actually the only proposal that retains a stance in the community that reflects our wants and needs as they change over time. All of the other options have the quality that takes away control from the everyday citizen. And after a certain point, once that is taken away from the community, it no longer is able to reflect our values. We also found that with the park creates an opportunity for a point of pride in the city. And if you're talking about the economic implications, we have here, and even in our own city, we have proof that if you create parks, if you create natural spaces, it creates the infrastructure that people want to be around. It creates interest that drives people to want to spend time here. And I think that can also affect tourism that would leach out into benefits.
Okay, so anybody on team 5 want to ask them 2 short questions, just so to keep it in time?
I have a question. I was curious, did you have numbers about the statistics regarding ecotourism and like the increase of surrounding like sales tax or hotel tax? Like how would that benefit the town? Would it be enough revenue to sustain like extra employees and hiring an arborist to maintain the land for the city?
Yes, that is a great question. And I think that is one of the benefits of proposal number 1, is that retaining this public infrastructure, this public entity, creates opportunities for the city council to have a say in the effects. I think that if you're selling to another company and leaving it to their authority to sway these kind of things, it creates a power dynamic that kind of is a little unsustainable. But I think creating a public space allows the city council to have a say in the way that it affects those kind of sales tax and things like that. So we don't have numbers, but we are definitely open to the city council implementing structures that.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna skip the second question just because I want to make sure that we all finish at 9. So let's do team so we did 1, 2. So let's do team 3.
Right, I'm gonna mute.
Who's team 3?
This is Jim with Team 3. I'm spokesperson for the group that included Linda, Chris, Wade, and Karen. We have the proposal that includes a shopping mall as part of it and new housing. Our proposal overall is a superior proposal because it combines advanced technology, social responsibility with new revenue streams that will help the community overall. So for instance, we would begin by walling off the 100 acres of old growth forest to keep that within the community. That's an important modification. That leaves 140 acres to be developed. We would insist on building requirements that minimize the footprint of buildings, such as for the mall requiring a parking structure as opposed to a large parking lot with major runoff problems. We'd require LEED certification for high energy intensive, low energy use buildings, whether they be housing or malls. We would include some sort of a revenue stream from the mall that would capture some of the revenue from the mall in the way of extra like sales tax forever that would be go into the schools to develop an ecology curriculum that would be used in conjunction with the old growth forest to make it a true asset to the community. With the housing, we would require, again, small footprints for the housing with large green space areas. They could be community areas or housing areas, but would also contribute to the community. This proposal is technology advanced, which is in keeping with the direction that the nation is going in becoming more energy responsible, while also meeting the needs of the population for shopping, as well as for new housing. In addition, there would be some protection for the existing businesses on Main Street that would be pressured from the new businesses at the mall, either through some sort of a tax rebate or some other system like that. So that's why we think our proposal is superior to the others. Anybody on my team want to add anything? Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Giving the Simpsons first dibs on the lumber, was that what we were talking?
That's right. Exactly right.
Okay, so team 5, do you have anything to say, anything to comment? Just one question or anything so we can go to the last team?
I was just wondering, I don't know if I missed it because my toddler was jumping off me, but did you include any like mixed use housing? Did you change, or are you open to that? Was that in the plan at all versus the luxury homes on large lots?
Only that the footprint be small, so that they would not be large lots. Everything would be small lots. We did not address mixed use housing.
Okay, but it's something you'd be open to in the
Sure.
overall plan as it progresses.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Thank you guys. This is working well.
This is fun.
Yeah, this is,
I like this.
Team 5 will be like, you'll have the hardest decision. You'll have to decide who you.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah.
Okay, and lastly, Team 4, I think you had the hodgepodge of whatever you wanted. And so if you can, short and sweet, so we can finish up, just to keep us on time. I think, who's the team spokesperson?
So I'm the spokesperson for Team 4. We have the good hybrid cross-pollination strength. My teammates were Nikki, Robert, Sandra, and Peggy. And basically, just to kind of work backwards through the other proposals, Proposal 3 really over prioritizes the sprawl, and we want to encourage Morrisville to take this as an opportunity to revitalize our downtown areas and believe in Main Street, and not build a new area that's just going to push that footprint of the negative aspects of urban development. I think that's pretty clear. Proposal 2 of selling that to the Simpsons, right, has a lot of merit to it, but it goes too far, like Team 1 was saying, about giving control of the civic space away to a private company. And so instead, we would propose that we maintain ownership within the city of Morrisville, and we work with the state forester and arborists to identify select trees that can be harvested and therefore still benefiting the economy. I would also like to note that benefit would then be ongoing. It would not be one lump sum. It would be something that as further trees need to get managed, that lumber would continue to be able to be used by our local manufacturing and would continually supplement our city and maintain that beauty, and also have a lot of the allure that Team 1 was talking about being a beacon for that type of ecotourism. Strength and hybridity.
Okay, Team 5, do you have anything you want to ask?
I had a question. So are you suggesting, so as you say, the city would maintain ownership of the land, however, we would explore options to contract out to have someone, produce the lumber for us? Is that kind of what your suggestion is?
Yeah, the primary would be to have the city maintain the land and develop it for trails and what's that word that I'm blanking on right now? Appreciating nature. That's not the word, but whatever. But then secondarily to that, as part of the management, there would be the need to cull trees, and then that would be the contract basis with the Simpson Tree Farm, and they would be able to get the benefit of both the raw material and the economic engine that comes through that, while not necessarily owning the land. The city maintains ownership of the land and is therefore able to continue to make decisions as our community grows and evolves.
Okay, great. Everybody, thank you for participating. Now, Team 5, I guess, since we can't break out into rooms anymore, each individual participant in Team 5, if hopefully you're on screen, I can only see a couple. Shay, vote for your proposal by number. So it's either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And hopefully y'all can tell me who the.
They can put it in the chat, maybe.
Okay, yeah, put it in the chat. Thank you. Everybody chat away.
While we're doing that, I did have a quick question. How would for Team 4, oftentimes a company needs, well, always a company needs a certain level of income to be profitable. And it sounds as if the city is just going to give some foresting to the company, rather than have a board where they make decisions on, how to grow that company and still retain profitability.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to propose the formation of a company. Simpson Tree Farms already exists, and they have their lands that they run. This would be partnering with them in a public-private partnership but we're not, the city government is not explicitly managing the Simpson Tree Farm as a business. They are their own entity.
And there would be a joint commission that would
work together to make decisions then?
Yeah, with like somebody mentioned the state forester, and I would believe that for a middle class town like Morrisville, we would have an arborist on staff.
Right. It's just that I'm
Well,
profit.
I think what she's trying to say is sometimes there are like commissions or boards established by the city, like citizen volunteer boards, advisory boards, to, especially when a part of the city like that would have like a budget. Usually if it kind of operates with its own line items like that, we would have to establish some, like she said, like some commissions to safeguard the whole thing.
Totally.
Hey, it seems like team 4 is the one that the proposal that the city council voted for. So now you have the hard work. No, but it's very interesting because this happens more often than we think about it all over the city. And what is sometimes that we forget is that it depends who's sitting on city council who decides what goes on and what questions get asked. So as the master naturalist, and the information you have, hopefully as a team, we can work together with an overall benefit for the community with factoring nature as well, not being an asset only. And also very important is for us to teach the next generations, because we learn to value it because of our experiences, but who's to teach the following ones for them to pursue and contain, because it's as popular as what's the common thread right now going on. And I got to see this firsthand with COVID, which has been a surprise to us overall. So a lot of people, we had to close the nature center. I was telling the group because we had too many people coming to the nature center, which that's what we wanted, but we got to see it firsthand and to the detriment of probably the nature. So we had to take a factor in there as well. Okay, guys, so I think I'm going to share just a couple of books I recommend. Thank you so much. I think this was really enjoyable to kind of practice or unity as a master naturalist in our community. So I'm going to share really quickly this screen, and I think I'm already sharing. Oh no, probably not. I want to really quickly. There you go. That was our activity. So some things to read. Definitely listen. I love The Hidden Life of Trees. I recommend it 100%. It's as easy as Aldo Leopold's book. It makes you think about the trees in a different light. If you want a historical book, The Cast Iron Forest, I recommend because it's about our area. It definitely has, you can see how this habitat might have been really before disturbance. And then of course, if you want a great field guide, and I love it, it's Sibley's Guide to Trees, and it's all over the Americas. So it's North America. So not only it's endemic to the North Central Texas. So really quick, our field trip will be composed of 3 naturalists in their sense. Tom Haas is actually a Fort Worth Audubon member. He hikes and birds a lot around the Nature Center. So he'll be conducting a birding tour. We're going to break into 3 groups. I'll be sending your group lineup. So remember, you're going to be Group A, Group B, Group C. And that's Saturday, September 18th from 9 to 3. We're going to meet at the Service Center. Dress for outdoor hiking because we'll go off trail when we go to the bottomlands, different bottomlands than you went for Michael Smith. You're going to be also doing birding. So bring binoculars. He recommends that you bring earth tone coloring. So not as bright as my shirt, he will say. And then of course you're gonna, then with me, we're gonna do DBHs and some transects. And with my fellow coworker, Dustin, he'll be doing some forest management because he's more involved with the fire and removing trees in the Nature Center. So please be prepared. The weather hopefully is cooler, but we'll have tons of fun, guys. I want to say thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys. Thank you, Master Naturalist.
Thank you. Great class, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Bravo, as always.
We appreciate
Thank you. Great class.
Thank you, students. Bye, guys. I think that's
Hey,
it, right?
Laura,
Yes.
someone asked the question, any chance of any extra binoculars that can be brought for those who don't have them?
if anybody wants to bring extras, that's great. I have broken ones at the Nature Center. I'll have a spare one that is still good, but if you want to bring extras for your fellow teammates, please do so. That would be great.